So,
She sounds really assured.
we'll get started. OVRC meeting. We'll do a roll call and see who's all here. First, we'll go around the room, and then we'll see who all's on the Ring Central teleconference. I'm Annette Lutz, Toledo representative and chair. We'll go around here to my right.
Jim Davis, Dayton representative.
Mark Wood, Columbus alternate.
Tom Neal, Cleveland.
Emily Neal.
Ethan Gregory, Ohio Assistant Attorney General.
Christy Howe, OOD.
Amy Sager, OOD.
Sally Nunes, OOD.
Frank Pergasa, Cincinnati representative.
Okay, then who all do we have on the line there?
John McNamara.
Wayne John,
Lisa Linsinger. Dwayne Burkholder.
Wayne and Lisa.
John Shelby Heindel.
I heard John Canada and Shelby Heindel. Anybody else?
Christopher Douglas is calling in.
Okay. But, and Mark, I didn't say good morning to you. I didn't know you were there, so good morning.
Morning.
Okay. Next, we'll look at the minutes then from the last meeting. Did everybody receive them? And would anyone like to move to accept them or have any corrections? No one?
I'll make a motion that we accept the November minutes.
Is there a second? No?
Second.
Okay. Tom second. Any discussion on the minutes? All right. Members, all in favor of accepting the minutes as distributed? Say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right. Next is the recommendations, responses. Any comments?
I did have a question about, I know they accepted the motion for UC at
12162783349.
with that, or what the plan is with that going forward.
Okay. The Cincinnati, Frank was asking, I don't know if you guys heard about.
Hey, just a minute.
I'm sorry, John.
You guys are coming in and out like somebody's turning the volume up and down. I didn't hear anything that Frank said. I didn't hear any of your
Then
reply.
come to a meeting.
Just making you aware.
Thanks, John. The technology's fun. Hey, Tom.
I'm working on it.
Okay. What Frank was asking was the recommendation for moving forward with University of Cincinnati. Where were we with that?
It was accepted.
Well, yes, but
Right. We were just,
So do you want me to, Madam Chair,
Yes.
do you want me to answer that?
yes.
So nothing has been done about that right this second. When we get into it, again, I think we need to talk about when is the right timing to do this. Again, if they opened up their doors right now, we don't have the cash to go in there. But we need to come up with a plan on, do we pursue this right this second? Do we wait until after the pandemic? Do we know when their pouring rights are?
2024.
2024 is when their pouring rights are up, so we can talk more about it when we get to the universities.
Okay. Any other comments or questions about the recommendations and responses? Okay. Next is public comment. Is there anybody who has a public comment?
yes, Madam Chair. I just wanted to tackle something that happened in something that happened in the November meeting, in which someone had asked for the floor was recognized by the chair, and there seemed to be some confusion over whether or not that person should have or was able to speak. And I know that some people weren't happy with what that person had to say. But this is the time, this is the place, this is the meeting where those debates and tough discussions take place. We should never censor people when they are speaking. They have the right to speak. They need to be heard. They should be heard. And you know, part of the vice chair's job is if they are being if they're being irate or out of control or just, you know, crazy, then yeah, I wouldn't have any problem shutting that down. But I would say that we represent operators, we are here to represent operators, and all of us should want to hear what they have to say so that we can make informed decisions and vote the right way to best represent those operators. And that the only other thing I would add to that is, you know, anybody that's not on the committee is considered a part of the general public. And yeah, we want the meetings to be done in an orderly fashion, but I hope the rest of the committee would join me in this, that we are not going to censor people's speech when they are just giving important and necessary input. The other comment I have has to do with rules. In late December and into January, Annette and I were asked to be on calls with RSA and with DEP management, and that was fine. But we did make clear to DEP management that Annette and I do not represent this whole committee, that this committee will speak as one, and that the changes that were talked about or discussed were not set in stone, that all we could do was provide some feedback or some guidance on what we thought would or would not work. So this Wednesday, when I seen that the rules had been filed with JCAR, my head almost exploded, to be quite honestly, because I thought, why would they go forward with this without bringing this to the full committee and letting the full committee actively participate, which Annette and I had made very clear. So I hope if there's any changes that need to be made, this committee will act today, and then DEP management will join us in getting the I's dotted, changes made, and T's crossed, so that going forward, this will be coming from the full committee, not just Annette and Frank. Thank you.
Is there any other public comment? And I believe, are the folks muted on their comment?
Yes.
Okay. So somebody on the phone line?
They cannot unmute themselves, Madam Chair.
Okay.
I didn't know that our
Yeah.
meetings permitted anyone from the phone line to comment.
We'll listen to their comment. The people couldn't vote or anything like that, even if they were members, but,
I'll adjust the settings, Madam Chair.
okay. I just want to make sure.
That's
That was
a-
my fault, 'cause
Yeah, it's a new precedent I was unaware of.
yeah. So we'll make sure nobody.
Just be patient with me here. I have to go to a different part of the app to do that.
Then after that, it'll be fine too.
Okay. They can now unmute themselves if they'd like to speak.
Okay, anyone else who would like to do public comment, those of you on the phone line could unmute yourself, if you have a comment to make. The *6. Or,
I just got unmuted and said you can't unmute yourself. It wouldn't let me, but I wanted to tell you guys about an email I got from Cantaloupe.
okay, Lisa?
Because of the 5G that's rolling out, starting May, companies are going to get fined if they accept contactless payments without the 5G. Starting August, they can swipe cards on the card readers that we just bought last year, but they can't do contactless payments such as Apple Pay, Google Pay, or Samsung Pay, what you do with a smartphone. The bezels need replaced, but unfortunately that's not an option on our devices. The whole devices will have to be replaced in order to take contactless payments.
Madam Chair.
Thank you. Lisa, were you done?
Yeah, that's
Okay.
all I had to tell you. I got that email. I didn't keep it. I found out what it meant to us. And I just wanted to let everybody know.
And we have,
Starting August.
we,
The only payments we can take are card swipe, no contactless payments.
okay, thank you, Lisa. Tom?
Madam Chair, the only reason, normally we don't respond to public comment and we allow folks to make their statement and leave it at that. But in this case, because I wouldn't want misinformation to be carried on and people to be concerned about this, the compliance issue has to do with the security used to process card payments, and all of our newer card readers are compliant, and that does not affect us.
Okay,
Pardon me.
good.
It's not 5G related. It's related to the security used to encrypt the transaction after the payment is made at the reader head.
Thank you for clearing that up, Tom. I'll be honest with you, Sally will tell you, I sent kind of a frantic email saying, hey, we spent all this money for nothing, and these aren't gonna work anymore, does this affect us? So I get the confusion. I appreciate the clarification too, so. Okay, anybody else with a public comment? Okay. Thing then on the agenda is a training update. Christy, or do you wanna?
Yeah, I'll do
that
that. Cynthia Lee is out on extended leave. I'm not sure when she's coming back. I anticipate her coming back. So we've got some operators that, again, have been sitting there during the pandemic, kind of in training, waiting for in-stand training. I've got a guy up in Cleveland right now that I think finished his in-stands with Christopher Douglas. So we want to make sure that we're still communicating with these trainees. We don't want them to think that they're being ignored. I'm trying to learn how to do training. I've also asked Lynn Hustwick to help me, and Lynn has been in this program a long time. Her husband was a operator, and she has reached out to all of the people that are in training right now, talked to them, finding out where they're at, asking them if they have any questions. We're being brutally honest. I talked to 2 trainees last week saying that, since the pandemic, we don't know what facilities are going to, what the shakeout of the pandemic is going to be, particularly in the Columbus area. And that it could be a long time for someone to sit there and not have a job. And they are well aware, very much well aware. So I've also reached out to the counselors of the trainees. So that's where we're at right now. I think maybe in February we can talk about statewide. There was discussion last year about having that back in May. Hopefully Cynthia will be back for the February meeting, but I don't know. We're going to have to figure out with contracts. And then again, the bandwidth of us planning a training right now, it's going to be difficult. We definitely need help from operators of this committee. So, but if you have any questions for me on training, where we're at, again, the pandemic has shifted our focus. Before we were trying to get more blood into the program and get more people in, and now we're not actively promoting the program because we think that there's going to be a reduction in the amount of facilities. So I think that's what I have for that. There will be an article coming out for highlighting Jeannie Snyder that's going to be on social media and her place up in Toledo. And again, I think any type of good press is good press. But I even told communications, instead of saying at the end, if you're interested in VE, but my contact name and number will still be present on that communications. And again, if anyone has any questions about training, please don't hesitate to call me.
Anyone have any questions or comments about the training?
Yes, Madam Chair, I do.
Yes, Tom.
Christie asked for some help or input from the committee. Is there anything specific she would like the committee to do, or any way that input should take place? Any particular forum? She's looking for a subcommittee that I'm not volunteering to head, something like that.
We do have a training subcommittee, and good Lord, if I can't think of who's
Scott Allen
Scott. Oh, good
was
Lord.
the chair.
Okay. Well, I guess I'm in charge of that one for the moment. Would anyone like to take on the training?
Mark, this would be a
Mark?
great way to introduce
I'll do
yourself to the.
Okay.
Yeah, that'd be interesting as well.
It'd be part of doing helping out with the training, and I'll be on the meetings and stuff too. So if you need any help or anything, we'll be able to help you out. But poor Mark, me and Tom got him from both sides.
You gonna do it?
He's never coming to another meeting.
I'm thinking I need a shot collar.
So, Madam Chair, I'll probably set up a meeting with Lynn and you and Jim Davis and I think
Mark.
and Mark.
Vice President as well.
Oh, okay. Thanks, Jim. That's great.
And I think, to prioritize, the priority definitely is going to be like an upward mobility training to schedule, the statewide piece, and then any recommendation, because recommendation of the actual training program. One of the things that we have to remind ourselves is that the rules and RSA insisted that we change the date or the age from 21 to 18. So even though we're not actively advertising, I think we need to be thoughtful and start thinking about how we can incorporate the School for the Blind and what that program looks like. And I think that there's opportunity to be very creative, thoughtful, and to come up with maybe a pilot program of some sort. Also, just looking at the training, one of the things that I'm finding out when I talk to these trainees, and we need to really talk about this, is like they're not interested in the open food, the 5-day a week. They want vending, and so. What does that look like? Making people go through 40 hours of the counter, which I'm not objective to, but at the same time, if they're not interested in that and then they don't bid on that for 10 years, what they learned in that 40 hours 10 years ago, is that going to be helpful? So I don't know. I have no answers. I'm just throwing out stuff.
Madam Chair.
Yes, Tom.
This is the part, Christie, where I go back on what I said. I guess I will be talking this meeting. I'd like to, every member of the committee who's here today, I know that all of us, we of course intend to participate here, but we've all made a lot of remarks over the years about training, things we thought that were deficient about training, things we thought we would like to be changed with training. And here we have the Bureau actually inviting our participation, and we shouldn't squander that opportunity. We should take advantage of it, and we should try to work cooperatively and really make some of the changes we think our program needs. And I have some suggestions about the topics Christie just mentioned, but this isn't a training meeting, so I won't go into those specifics. But I will offer any input that's I guess welcome, and I really hope everyone else would too, because we're quick to criticize. We should be just as quick to help.
Absolutely. Now we'll get together and have a meeting, and hopefully we're going to have opportunities. Our group is not, sadly enough, we're losing facilities. That part's unfortunately going to be a reality, and hopefully we can gain some. But sadly enough, none of us are getting younger either. So there is a need for training still. The not promoting it openly at the moment makes sense, but we're obviously going to need other people too, because like I said, we're 19 and younger, none of us are. So, and we want people to have these jobs. Okay, anything else on training? Okay. I'm going to jump, because a couple of these are going to run together. The university and budget priorities, I think those conversations are almost going to be hand in hand in some ways. So let's get this one done first, the distribution of the benefits money. Christie?
Madam Chair, I'm giving this one to Amy.
Oh, okay. Amy?
Hi. So we, like, the committee's input, unassigned income is coming up, and it's roughly like around $280 that we'll be distributing. So all of the people who had transitioned last year, who weren't considered past due and now have until March 31st to pay off that debt, we, I guess, are just asking for your guys' opinion on, should we deduct their unassigned income from that amount? Or, I guess, have them have their amount that they owe and then also just give them the unassigned income.
Everyone follow what?
I probably
That's
did that
okay.
completely.
People that owe money, should we keep the $280 and apply it toward their debt, or go ahead and distribute that to them and let them pay off their debt? Anyone else wants to?
Madam Chair,
Yes, Tom.
there was some feedback that the audio was going in and out, so I was attempting to do something. But if
Okay.
you want to try sliding your iPad closer to the edge of the table or something, maybe.
Slide it.
Like further, I think what's happening is it's picking up a little background noise
Okay.
and muting the microphone.
Okay.
Sorry.
What I was going to say is, my opinion is that since it was not past due yet, they're not behind, we let the operators decide. If they want to go ahead and apply that, they know they have their debt, go ahead and let them apply that if they want to. But if not, they're not past due yet, so I wouldn't think we just would keep it automatically without asking them. I know if it was me, I would go ahead and tell you to keep it and apply it to the debt and then send me a bill for the rest. But I think we should let people decide before we just keep it.
Okay.
But that's just me. Other committee members, I'm just starting the discussion, so. Does anyone else have an opinion on that, or? No? No? I guess no one has a thought on it. So I guess you guys can do what you, or, like I said, I think you should just, because it's not past due, I don't know that we can just keep it, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, Madam Chair, that's why we kind of wanted to ask, because it was just kind of unclear of whether we could or not, or what the best route is, but we will for sure ask the operators what.
Okay. Have they received notices yet, the ones who are due, that they're going to be due at the end of March?
So they received in their closing packet kind of their balance, but they haven't received like a formal letter or anything that says like March 31st. We were going to wait after this meeting and send them something. We have like a letter drafted for them just to get their total, whether it was with unassigned income or not.
Okay.
And Madam Chair, back to the applying to the debt. We will reach out and we will give them the option. If we cannot get a response from one or two of them, and that's my fear, they've left the program and have not been very responsive, then I think we're gonna have to make the call and maybe even send them a letter saying, we've tried to ask you, we've reached out, we're applying this to your debt.
Okay, what is the wording on the rules? Because I understand what you're saying, but I don't know what the word, because isn't the wording on the rules past due?
Yes.
So I don't know that you can.
Okay, we'll just give them the 280.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, if they want
just-
it done, but I don't know that you can just take it if it's not past due yet.
I mean, we've got a person that's, and I think the timing, we will never see this money again.
I understand that, I know. Anything else? Okay, university updates.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
So the Monday after Thanksgiving, Christy and I went down to OU and met with their brainers, I guess. It was 3 of them. And we talked to them about taking over the other half of campus. And they were actually very receptive to that. They're wanting to do the right thing. They are basically saying if we take it all, it's ours. But they need an answer like early next week as to whether we do that or not. Our concern with that one is, Amy, do you remember what the machine cost the one was? Sorry.
Yeah.
$296,000.
Well, that's with the Blackboard readers. So they use Blackboard readers, which are much more expensive than USA Tech. So the machines and the readers together was $296,000.
The machines are 201.
So $201,000 for the machines.
Yeah.
Okay. It's a great opportunity,
Yeah.
but I'm concerned budget-wise what that might look like. So that's one we can consider, and I guess I'll give you all the
Yeah, go
options
ahead.
here before we
Let's-
make a decision. Kelsey Berger and I met with the University of Akron, and their beverage contract is up in June, and we talked to them. This was a new person that was in charge of the vending on campus, and we explained our priority and sent very direct language and met with her. She was, again, asked if we paid commissions, and we explained that we cannot, and we sent her the AG opinion about that. And she's kind of gone silent on us, kind of ghosted us. So that's another one. And we can talk about what that one costs. Oh, you sent it to me. I'm sorry.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
for Akron, we would go with the assumption, which could come back and bite us in the butt, that we would use the branded Pepsi
Right.
machines that are there.
Right.
They also use Blackboard readers in Akron. So getting Blackboard readers on those machines, which is around 80 machines, is a little over $72,000.
Okay. I have a silly question.
Yeah.
It's probably a real silly question. Do we have to use the blackboards just because the university uses them?
Pretty adamant at OU about it.
Pardon me?
They're pretty adamant at OU about it.
Yeah.
So you'd lose out on the students using their cards.
Their card system.
Right.
Okay. That's what I was wondering, if that's
Madam
which is probably
Chair,
a main source. Yes, Tom.
I believe right now we do not have any Blackboard readers on the snacks we have at Akron U.
Okay.
So that should be considered whether or not we get drinks. If the university is willing to allow that to happen, it's a great revenue stream for our operators, and we should definitely make that happen.
To have the Blackboard readers?
On the existing snacks that are out there, regardless of whether or not we get the drinks.
Again, that I agree, but that's more money that we don't
I
have.
understand. And Madam Chair,
Why did
too,
we not have them? But when times were nice and everything, why did we not put them in? Did the operator not want them, or?
Madam Chair,
Yeah.
to Christie and
Yeah.
kind of to the committee. At that point, the grantor wasn't willing to allow us to do that. Nowadays, if that has changed, we should, like I said, take advantage of the opportunity because of the available revenue for the operator out there. But budgets, it's something we're stuck with, and if we can't do it today, that's fine, but we shouldn't forget about it.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Also, in the discussion with OU, we did talk about how at OSU, we were able to use the USA Tech card readers and map it together with Campus Connect, so it does take the Buck ID as well.
Mm-hmm.
And they said that may be something they're interested in going forward. So that may be something we could look at with Akron as well. It would at least reduce the cost of the card reader.
Right.
There would be, I think the fees are a little structured different, and based on how the university does it. Like OSU, Ston gets all of the money every month, but then he has to pay OSU part of the card sales, I think. A portion of it, just based on the structure.
Okay,
But that's also something, I mean, it still costs money,
Things
but
to look
not
at,
as
right.
expensive.
right.
So that's another option. And then Lynn and I met with Bowling Green and had a conversation with them, and we got a very direct list of what we would need to do to be on campus there, essentially getting new machines, and basically they're offering us the snack business, and we had asked about Coke, if we could run the Coke machines. Their agreement is not up until 2027, but we said we would be happy to take that portion over. They were supposed to talk to Coke to see how they felt about us using their branded machines. And their response didn't address the Coke at all, so that's our response back to them. They don't need a final decision until mid-March, so we're going to continue talks with them to see if they've gotten a decision from Coke or not.
Okay,
And then Tri-C is the one where we were going to go into the other campuses. We're currently at Eastern. We were going to go into Western, Metropolitan. There are a couple little branches. We had spoken with them through this pandemic, and they went ahead and did another year agreement with AVI for those campuses because we were not able to purchase the equipment.
right.
And they actually needed a decision
2 weeks ago.
2 weeks ago, and basically told us that they need to move forward, and they're going to do another year or two extension with AVI. We'd asked them to let us know so that we could look at that again and continue to talk with them.
Madam Chair,
Yes, Tom.
unfortunately, I have to take up some more of the committee's time again and kind of go a little bit off here, but that Tri-C Main and West Campus stuff has also been tied into the Tri-C East Campus that we have an operator at. And that operator has been operating under what I think is one of the more archaic agreements we have in our program, where the grantor dictates pricing, the grantor dictates, they have final approval. If the grantor says no, the operator's not allowed to raise prices. There have been some very strict COVID restrictions put in out there. There's a lot of competition. The competition is advertising in the vending areas, and that place has just turned into a free-for-all. And we put an operator out there. It was his first facility, and if this keeps up, it's going to be his last. He's losing everything with this place. And what seems to be happening is the more the central and west campuses get put off, the longer the east campus is stuck with no contract. My understanding is the current contract is expired, and because it's expired and we can't seem to negotiate one that encompasses everything, we're just doing nothing. And when I say we're doing nothing, I don't mean that the Bureau's not trying, but the grantor is just not, they're not cooperating. And as a result, our operator is having a more difficult time than what he should be having. And we need to address that. We can't let this go for another 2 years, or we're either going to lose that operator and that facility, or just one or the other. And with that, Madam Chair, I yield the floor back.
Thank you, Tom. So
Madam Chair?
yes.
So I was just wanting to pull up the contract here. We do have an amendment that does an automatic renew every July 1st. So we do have a good BGA there. I just talked to Mark Messick this week, and something I've asked him to do, and I've also will be having Jen help him, is I've asked him for a list of his current pricing on each item as well as what his cost is. And I want to take that to the grantor and say, look, here's what we're paying for the product and here's what he's selling it for, to help them see, because I don't think they really understand how much the price increases have affected this. I know Tom, I know they're difficult to work with as far as the pricing for sure. So that's something I've asked Mark to do, and I'll ask Jen when she's back next week to make sure she helps him kind of create a spreadsheet so that we can show them what that looks like.
Madam Chair.
Yes, Tom.
I apologize once again. I'll make it brief. I appreciate that. This has been going on for several years with them, and some of the stuff we're talking about, just so everyone's aware, some of the prices that our operator's being asked to charge for the product are less than what he pays for the product on a few items.
Oh.
And so it's when I start complaining about prices, I'm not talking about an operator who's gouging. I'm talking about an operator who wants to be paid for his work. And I'm glad that Sally is addressing this. And I think the solution in this particular case of showing them, hey, he's not making a fortune off this stuff. Some of this stuff is he's barely breaking even. That's a great thing, but I also think it sets a very dangerous precedent of us having to go to grantors in the future and justifying our prices, which is something we should never start doing. And with that, Madam Chair, I once again yield the floor back.
You know, I'm almost wondering, I mean, in our rules discussing here with RSA and everything, things have come up about, now not specifically in our rules because it's not in our rules, but in just the talks and some of the ideas that's come out in their recent technical assistance circular and everything, where it talks about price setting and all that. I'm not even sure that that's legal considered anymore to have a grantor be able to set prices. And I know we're trying to negotiate for future business on that campus and everything, so I know it's kind of a sticky situation, but I'm almost wondering if that's like the commission thing, basically saying, hey, we can no longer do this with this part of the contract. Our operator is a private business person who has the right to set their prices and shouldn't be dictated to in this way. Now, we're probably not there yet. Hopefully we're not there yet, and they'll listen for some reason, but at some point, if they don't, we're going to have to probably take a stand with it.
Madam Chair.
Yes, Tom.
Sorry.
No, you don't have to stop apologizing every time you get recognized.
Sometimes these things I get down rabbit holes that I don't intend to get down, and that's what I apologize for. I do want to make sure that when we have a discussion with them and we start talking about pricing, that we make the distinction that sales tax is incorporated into that published price on that vending machine. When you go to a local establishment on that campus, sales tax is not in that advertised price. So if you compare those two prices directly, that puts our operator at a disadvantage from the start. So any discussion about costs need to include the sales tax. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Absolutely. Okay, other university, is what you're laying them out with. Okay, so I guess we need to,
Madam Chair.
yes,
Sally, could I get you or Amy or somebody to get me a copy of all of those ones you just gave to us? And what I would like to do is get my program growth work group together and actually let us have a chance to, if Sally or Amy or somebody would like to be a part of that call, they're welcome to. Just to try and take a look at it and see if we can figure out what the priority should be. I wanted to respond to what Christy had said earlier about UC2, about their contract not being up till 2024. I do think at some point we need to move forward with what we need to do with the litigation piece of it, just because when we go through the litigation, and I believe we'll be successful, but one of the things I've said previously is the takeover date, once we know we have it, the takeover date can be negotiated in contract. You know, it doesn't have to be, if we go whenever it would go to litigation, and that's going to take some time too. But just because if we go and we win doesn't mean we have to take it over next week or next month. They can, because, and I'm sure they would appreciate the extra time too. I mean, I don't really want to give them extra time, but the issue here is money, and we have to be careful. So I get it, but I hope Anyway, I don't know, Annette, what do you think?
No, I like it. But I think some of these we're gonna have to at least try to give some answer for
Right,
before long.
right.
Well,
Well, that's why I need all this.
one of them's like next week, which
Mm-hmm.
sadly enough, I know that puts us under the
Under the gun.
a little bit, but that was OU. And that was the one, was that, am I wrong?
No, you're correct.
Okay.
No, I wasn't sure.
Yeah, that one's, they thought of a price of 290-some thousand.
Yikes.
Yeah. But boy, I don't want to, I hate going down the road with the budget, but boy, it just seems like we should have something to do that. I mean, we should not be throwing opportunities away when we have places closing down.
Madam Chair,
Yes,
we also have some other opportunities that have popped up if you want us to go through those too before you.
might as, well, save the laundry one, we have that specifically,
Okay.
but the other actual vending, because that's gonna be a whole other talk, the laundry service.
Yeah.
Madam Chair.
Yeah.
So just kind of, I mean, going through everything that we kind of have coming up here, 398 is under construction. Tom knows
That
about
Tom,
that one.
that's,
So that's gonna be reopening hopefully, this year, and so we're gonna need machines for that.
Well, that we have to do, that's already an established facility, so we have no choice there.
That's the whole reason I'm on this committee.
And just so you guys are aware, since we did the budget last year for this year, there's been 2 significant price increases in the vending world. First, it was, in 2021, it was like an 8% increase. And then just recently, there's been an 11% increase on prices. So what we budgeted for 398 and then also 541, which is the Portage County.
Yes.
We under budgeted just because we didn't take into account such large, it's like 20% price increase. So the machines for 398 are going to be around $44,000, and 541 it's $89,000.
Okay. It's just a quick question, and I'll duck as Tom's rearing back to throw something. Do these operators need brand new machines? Do we have machines around that they can,
Well,
we can use?
there's some other places too that will need machines that we're
Okay.
thinking we could use warehouse machines for.
Right, yeah, okay.
Such as like the Toledo and Youngstown VAs, the Toledo and Youngstown post offices. And then there's a military entrance processing, and these locations are the ones Universal are running that RSA says we need to take back over.
Correct.
So all of those locations, we would like, since, post offices aren't exactly the most glamorous places, for a majority of those machines to be warehouse machines, like ones that we have and are ready to go, but there are machines such as like your cold foods and coffee machines that aren't like readily available all the time at the warehouse
Right.
that we have to purchase, and unfortunately those are the most expensive ones. So we have all of those locations. We have the OU and the Akron we talked about.
Right.
And then if we do need to buy any more credit card readers, that's always going to be an ongoing
That's on, yes.
cost, but it is a cost. So those are kind of like all of the things we have in the forefront with the budget to look at, like where we want to prioritize the money. I will say service charge it's been pretty steady. It's better than it was, of course, like in 2020. But we still are we're maintaining our cash balance. Like we're not
Right.
deducting a bunch, but we're not necessarily building that back up. And that's kind of where it gets into, are we able to spend these dollars without crippling the cash balance?
That's what we need to know, yeah. And well, I think we need to make priority into growing the program. Obviously, we need to maintain what we have. there's no doubt about that. We do need to continue maintenance and repair, and, equipment moves when they're needed, and the all the stuff that just happens to keep the doors open that we need. But man, we can't turn down opportunity, not when we're losing it. I mean, we just had this discussion about people training and coming in, and, we gotta have jobs for folks.
Madam Chair.
Yes, Sally.
Something else we've talked about is, like 5:30 shut down. If, the other air center location shuts down, we'll have some machines there. Will the 400 building ever look the same? So we could potentially get some other machines from places that are closing down. I still don't think it'll be quite enough for everything, but, we will have some more used machines, I believe.
Yeah, and I think those are gonna trickle in, sadly enough. I mean, that's the case, we're probably gonna have less of a need for machines in the government buildings. But we don't know how that's going to, that's gonna be trickled.
Right.
It's gonna be a little here and a little there. So, I don't know. Right? Yeah, Athens we gotta decide on today. So let's talk the number, because I'm no good with numbers. It's amazing I can do my MOR, but we did OU. What's that? How's that leave our money? I mean, kind of round figures.
So our cash balance right now is we're maintaining around that 375, kind of like we have been.
Right.
So it
would be
296.
Yeah, that'd be bad.
Yeah, so that's gonna immediately drop it around $63,000 just for that one expansion.
And Madam Chair, that's assuming we can use the branded Pepsi machines that are there.
Correct.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I know when people hear $63,000, it's like, wow, that's a big investment. But if it actually does the sales that we would hope that it does, we could recover that in 3 years in service charge. So I understand we only have so much money to work with, and sometimes we should look at it the opposite way. And if we're going to grow, it's going to be painful, and that stinks. But these are actual investments that will give us a return. They're not like some of the stuff that we've done in the past that we all know we shouldn't have done.
But it was like 200 and some thousand, wasn't it?
Well, but our portion from our budget because of the match.
Okay.
Sorry,
I'm sorry.
I'm confused you.
I told you. Okay.
Well, that's, Madam Chair, I will say, one of the things that Tom Darren said to me, I was like, well, we're trying to be careful. We don't want to take the cash balance below a certain amount of money. And he said, well, you don't want to. He said, but if you spend it and you know you're going to have money coming back in, if you spend the money and you got more coming back in, it won't all come back in all at once, like Tom just made a point. But if we could increase our service charge revenue after that investment significantly, it may come back quicker. I'm just going to come back quicker than what Tom said, but it may increase the revenue per month, over time.
Madam
We don't want to put ourselves in a bad position, though.
Yes, Christie.
So, and again, if I could scrounge up change in a sofa, I would right now. But the other concern I have with OU, and Akron for that matter, is they've been up for bid multiple times. We don't know, this is a lot of machines. So first off, don't know if it's one or two jobs. If it's two jobs, do we have two people that are willing and able to do OU? It's in the middle of nowhere. I know Jim's here and he's temping it. It's a lot of work. It is a hard, hilly campus. Oh my gosh, when Sally and I went there that one day just to walk around a little bit. So I just want to make sure that if we're investing, that we've got people interested in these types of jobs.
Madam Chair,
Yes, Tom.
I know just because I'm familiar with Akron just because I'm in that area, and there's been times when Akron hasn't had representation, and I've stepped in. I talked to the Akron reps, I talked to the Akron operators, and one of the reasons there hasn't been any interest in Akron U is because it's snacks only, and I myself have advised a few people I wouldn't mess with it for just snacks. So some of the reason we haven't had interest is just because it hasn't been a very attractive facility, but beverages, I think, double those sales, if not a little bit more. So I think the field of potential operators expands greatly with a little bit of investment there.
And that reader, the reader seems to me that would increase things a lot when people could use their meal plans. Well, maybe not quite as much at Akron as opposed to other universities. I think that's more of a commuter school and not a huge on-campus, dorm residential school. So I don't know how many students have meal plans, but I would think it would increase it some if we don't have it at all. I've been wondering all along why Akron was such for the size of campus it is, why it was not a really good facility. And obviously the big one is the fact that we don't have the beverages, but.
Well, Madam Chair.
Yeah.
There is something to what you just said about that access card as well, and I can give my Kent State experience. The retailers around Kent State accept the Kent State meal plans. You can go to Walgreens, you can go to Target, not Target, what's the name of that little store? Acme. And those places, Starbucks, all that stuff, you can swipe your meal card off campus. On campus, there's plenty of options that accept that meal card. So if Akron U is at all like that, that's business we are not even able to approach, because if you're a student and you've got this card in your pocket that can get you something for free, or you've got this vending machine that's going to take your money, which one are you going to go to?
Exactly.
So that just getting the blackboard readers on the equipment at Akron, I think could be huge for just the snack sales. If you put the beverage sales plus those readers on there, that completely transforms that facility, in my opinion.
I agree, yeah, and you're right, the students, even though they're paid for, the students see that when it's just a card in their hand that somebody else probably paid for, whether it's parents or a grant or, something else, it's free. They're not paying cash for it, so to them it's free.
So, Madam Chair.
Yes.
So here's the problem with Akron. They're not as open-armed with us, and which stinks, because we're in a crunch period, because theirs expires in June. We're still going to have conversations with them. We're still going to say, we're not going in July 1, you need to renew in a very minimal way for your continued POP. We need to still have that conversation. But OU, again, we need a decision for them this week.
I think, my opinion, we should do it, but we probably would need more to people, what people's opinion is, and we would probably need a motion.
Madam Chair?
Yes, Tom.
Can we ask Jim to speak a little bit on his experience out there and his opinion?
So Sally, Madam Chair, Sally,
Yes,
when we talked about a month ago, you said it was 104 machines that would be eligible in June in terms of new equipment?
Madam Chair, so I think it would be 104 machines. If they left the Pepsi, we would only have to buy 38 machines.
And that's all snack?
Snack, and I think a couple, let me look.
A couple coffees.
Yeah, like snack and maybe a couple cold food or something.
Oh.
I'd have to look at the list again, but yeah, that does not include the beverage machines. Now I think at that campus, I think Pepsi would probably be willing to do it. Is it Noel? Is that who
Laura Noel?
Laura, yeah. Oh yeah, her last name.
Yeah, and she said that that's 70 machines, and I think it was almost 70 different buildings. That they would keep them all there. We're not buying anything new in terms of. So does that bring the number significantly down? I would think.
So
for 38 machines.
Madam Chair, so no, so there were the 70 or 78 or 70 Pepsi machines, and then we'd still need to purchase or scrounge up the 38 snack and other machines.
So even with that, it's still that $296
Yes.
figure. Okay.
Madam Chair,
yeah.
to Jim. What's your opinion about it? Do you think that, are you seeing potential out there? Are you
Oh,
seeing
I mean, selfishly, I can handle it. I like the workload out there. I have an employee right now that used to work for Josh, and his younger brother is also on campus. I'm lucky because he got accepted into graduate school, which means he's graduating this May, but he's going to stay there. So that helps me out a lot. I don't have to worry about anything for at least for the foreseeable.
Well, Madam Chair, can I put a little bit finer point on
Yeah.
it? Your personal circumstances aside, if you were looking at that as a facility that was going up for bid, would it be something you would consider bidding?
Yeah, and I've voiced that to Sally too. I mean, I realize there's a process behind the bidding, but yeah, I mean, if there was more meat to it with these, with the additional opportunity coming, then yes, I would be interested in it as my primary facility.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
Also, if we were able to get OU to allow us to use the USA Tech with Blackboard capability versus just straight Blackboard readers, so that we'll say those are about $200 a piece. That would take the total down to like $222,000. So the 21.3 would be like 47,000 instead of 63.
Yeah. So what, I mean, what would OU care if it takes the card? What do they care what kind of equipment's on the machine that it processes?
That was my argument to Laura. You know, I said these restaurants, like Tom was saying, I mean, I guess kind of against what Tom was saying, you know, they take credit cards at these restaurants that are steps away from the vending machines. You know, at the Baker Center there, they have, you know, Mexican restaurant, and, you know, they all take, you know, the point of sale stuff is all Square or that's Visa, MasterCard, and anything like that. So I don't know why they limit us with the vending.
Yeah.
Madam Chair?
Yeah.
As far as USA Technologies, there's two different services that campuses use. They use Blackboard and they use Seaboard. And I know USA Tech is compatible with Seaboard, and I've actually had some discussions with them. But I don't know that they're compatible with Blackboard.
Okay.
Madam Chair,
Yeah.
OSU has Blackboard, so they are definitely compatible.
Yeah, so. okay.
With USA Technologies
Uh-huh.
in the existing equipment?
Yes.
Okay.
Good. So, like I said, I don't know why.
Well, Madam Chair, if I may, I can answer part of that as
Okay.
well. In dealing with this and the way universities process payments, some of the card processors want to do a direct withdrawal from the university's bank account. Other of them will do a running tally that they then give to the university, and the university pay the operator. And some universities don't want to get involved in accepting the equipment on the vending machines or accepting those swipes on the vending machines because of the potential for someone making withdrawals on the university accounts. And it's just it's their finance departments that are in the way. But there are ways, at least with Seaboard, where you can work around that. I don't know about Blackboard, but that's probably one of the larger stumbling blocks. And the other is that some of those places, and I'll use Kent again as an example, they run their own food service now. So if they get the students to swipe that money at those food service locations, that money goes right back in their pocket. They don't have to give it out to the vending operator. So it's in their best interest to not let the vending accept those swipes. And with that, Madam Chair.
Right. But if they're going to accept the Blackboard swipe, I guess what I'm asking is, if they're allowing it and they want us to have the ability to take the swipes on the machines, what do they care if we use the more expensive Blackboard readers or the USA Tech readers if they're doing basically the same thing?
And Madam Chair.
Yeah.
Christy and I did talk to them about that when we met with them, and they seemed open to that in the future. It wasn't something, they just had not invested in it in the past. I think because they were all in with the Blackboard readers already.
Okay.
But as those become more obsolete, I mean, I thought they were open. Christy, do you think differently?
Yeah.
Okay.
They were very, very open.
Yeah.
And they just need an answer though. And
So that's good, because I just wondered if they had a good argument why they were doing it, if it was something we could, repudiate or not.
And all three of these gentlemen were fairly new to the university. So I think the people there before them were just kind of set in their ways, but these guys are like, hey, we want to do what's right.
Yep.
They're not happy to give up commissions, but they want to do the right thing and follow the law.
Good.
Madam Chair,
Frank first and then Tom.
Thank you.
do we have any sales figures on the portion of the campus that we don't have?
Madam Chair, I will have to look.
Sorry.
I don't recall.
But you understand why I'm asking.
Yeah, absolutely. Good question. Tom?
I just wanted to throw out so everyone is on the same page and aware that there are fees associated to the operator in doing it this way. You'll be paying a fee to Blackboard/Seaboard. You'll be paying a fee to USA Technologies, so that the costs go up a little bit when you start accepting these campus cards. But I don't think it's a reason not to do it, but I'm just throwing it out there as something else to be aware of.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
kind of looking at our cash situation from more of a creative standpoint. So we need roughly, like, if we are able to use USA Tech readers, that would bring us down to $201,000, which means we need like around $43,000 cash for that opportunity. And I know that right now we are using unassigned income. We're not matching it because we use a portion for insurance. I know that this is on the agenda, and I know that it's going to be a big topic of discussion.
Right.
But if we could use that money that we normally use for that and match it, like, so we're getting 3 times the amount, we could pay for OU. It's just another option to consider. Just to kind of get more bang for your buck for those unassigned income dollars.
Yeah, we're gonna talk about it, sure, but I appreciate the thinking out of the box. I don't know if we'll go that route, but that it's definitely a good thing to bring up and to point out.
Yeah, Master, I'm just trying to
Absolutely.
think of all different options
No,
to throw out
we
there. So.
appreciate that, because those are, we definitely need to know that type of stuff and think about that when we talk about the insurance. But, all right, let's look at these right off the bat. OU, is there any thoughts, or, I mean, people can ask more questions, but are there any motions, or?
Madam Chair, before there's a motion, may I have a moment?
Yes.
If I were to vote on a motion one way or the other, I would need more information. What's the enrollment? What's the current enrollment? What's the expected enrollment? How many machines are we currently in? How many more are we talking about expanding? I know we've just had this long discussion, but I need to see it. I need a group of facts all put together so I can help make a smart decision about it. Otherwise, I would be making an uninformed decision, which I'm not prepared to do.
So, Madam Chair,
Yes.
again, it's my understanding that we've always had half of OU and they've always had the other half. We do, right, snacks and pop on half, and they do snacks and pop on the other half, or AVR does. And again, and even they said, and I don't know if Sally can bring up numbers, that this might be 2 jobs. But I don't know if you're able to bring up numbers. And again, it's maybe even pre-pandemic.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
that is what I'm looking at is pre-pandemic, just to kind of give us an idea. This would be
Get back there, yeah.
for the half that we already operate. And it's my understanding, Jim, correct me if I'm wrong, that the other half is a larger, probably better half since they were getting commission would be my guess. But looking at sales, like 2017, 2018, for the half that we do operate, it was 19,000, 16,000, 18,000.
For a month.
Yeah, for a month.
Yeah.
And obviously during the school year. The summer's going to be lighter. The summers were like anywhere between 5,000 and 7,000, it looks like.
So, Madam Chair, Sally, what was the year, one of those years?
I used 2017 and 2018 is what I looked at.
Yeah, but she means the total. What was the total?
Oh, for the year?
Yeah, I think.
Okay, hold on.
Those are good numbers for the school, because you think even double that if that's.
Right.
I'm with you. I would imagine they kept a little bit better. They say half and half, but I would think that.
We always get the worst half.
Yeah. I would think that they double that would be a fair conservative estimate.
So using fiscal year 18, it was about 150,000.
Madam Chair,
Yeah.
that does help me. Thank you. How many machines are we talking about total with what what we currently have and what we're adding, if we move forward with this.
Madam Chair, Jim, do you know how many machines you have?
Yeah, so Madam Chair, right now I got 59 machines out there right now. That's 33 Pepsi, whatever that is in snack. And then coming is another 104, 70 of that's Pepsi, and what do we say, 38 of that would be snack and assorted coffee or hot food, whatever that would look like. Building-wise, 23 buildings right now, and expanding to another, like you said, much bigger, 70 more buildings, and that could be like one Pepsi in one building kind of thing, like I have in a couple setups now. So you're looking at about 100 buildings on campus, just shy of.
Madam Chair, my thoughts on that are that that's a lot of work for. It sounds like a lot of money, but that wouldn't even be one of our largest. There's a lot of expense going into that. You're going to need employees. You're going to need vehicles. That's whether it be one operator, two operators. All this stuff goes together for me to make my decision of it. And just looking at the number of buildings, number of machines, and projected amount of sales, and I'm saying around 300,000.
Yeah.
I did that same amount of sales with 65 machines and 23 buildings at Youngstown. So that would definitely have to be weighed, and that it doesn't look quite as attractive to me, honestly. I feel kind of crazy saying that. Why doesn't 300,000 look attractive to you? Well, when I got to spend 40 of that on an employee and vehicles and all that other, the waste you're going to have, because not all of those buildings are going to be great. And when you've got that many machines, waste is going to be a huge problem for you. So, Madam Chair, I appreciate them giving me more information. Do we need to make a decision on this today?
I think we do, don't we?
Madam Chair, yes, they wanted an answer next week, if possible.
Well, then, Madam Chair, my initial thought on it would be if we have to choose between 3 different options and we can only take one of them, so far this one does not look like the most attractive to me.
Any other committee member or anyone thoughts?
Madam Chair?
Yes, Sally.
I'm sorry to say this, but the one thing I think we need to consider is they're giving it to us, we're not gonna have to fight for it.
Right.
That's the
That's
plus
right.
side. That's the biggest part.
I mean, if this was not a budgetary problem, it would be a no-brainer. We would be in there, right away.
Well, Madam Chair,
Yeah.
I have to go back to the words of 2 meetings ago where somebody said, and I wish I could remember who so I could give them credit, but they said if they're giving it to us, there's a reason for that. If they're not fighting for it, there's a reason why.
I don't know if I go with that, only because we've been there giving them good service.
And Madam Chair, these are also 3 brand new people who are, again, wanting to do the right thing.
The law says we're supposed to have it. We have new people in there who knows what the law says. We have operators in there who's giving them good service. Why wouldn't they want us?
Well, I think everyone should want us. Honestly, we provide new equipment. Our livelihoods are directly related to how well we run our businesses. I think people are crazy for not having this.
I agree. I never went through that either, but.
Madam Chair, I think we should go forward with it. I mean, Tom, it kind of goes against some things you said in the past about program growth and not being at universities, not having a presence with drinks on campus. I mean, we're getting all of those things, so I don't see the issue. And
Well, we probably need a motion at some point, whether to move forward with it or not. And it's a shame that we're under the gun with this.
You make it, I'll second it, Jim.
okay,
Just so we can talk about it.
I'd like to make a motion that we pursue the OU vending, the additional, 104 machines in June.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any more discussion? Okay. Oh, did you have something?
No.
Oh, okay.
I'm trying to figure out where I'm going with this.
Okay,
Madam Chair,
Yes.
again, we just don't know where we're coming up with the money. That's the problem.
well,
You brought your purse, didn't you?
yeah, write a check there.
She wishes she could. We all wish we could.
Let's pass the hat. Everyone needs, someone got a hat, we can
Got a hat.
we'll pass it around. Well, we gotta work on it, revenue source. That's one thing that we're gonna, I think, I doesn't have to work on, but let's see. Okay, so we have, yes.
Does that mean, Christie or Sally, does that mean if we do this, they want us in there on June 1st or July 1st or something like that? There's no room to get an extension? I'm just asking the question. I'm not trying to put it off forever. I was just.
Madam Chair, that's our understanding, and I mean, we could, one of the things is if they would have to renew with their current contractor. And again, I don't think the current contractor is, I don't think they've told the current contractor. And generally, when these universities go to the contractor, they're like, well, we want a 2-year extension. It's not even 1 year. So I think we are under the gun, and that if we tell them, yes, we're going to move forward with a July 1 takeover date.
Okay. Any other questions? All right, we'll go for the vote, to go for the opportunity at Ohio University. Jim,
Yes.
Tom,
No.
Mark,
Yeah.
Frank,
Oh. Yes.
and I'll say yes too, so it passes. Okay, now we have the other ones. And I don't think we're under the gun with those, but there's something we need to kind of look at and see where we end up with.
Madam Chair,
Yes,
didn't we just kind of make that decision?
well, we kind of did in a lot of ways, but I don't think we're ready just to throw in the towel and say no yet. We really gotta work on something. But we need to, I don't think we need any other decision today, do we?
Madam Chair, for colleges and universities, no.
Okay. Well, the big one, I guess, is what, yeah, some of these other little or things
Yeah.
might be up, but,
Madam Chair, I know this isn't public comment, but can I have a moment to make a statement?
yes.
Thank you. I believe that the vote that we just had, if the Bureau follows through with our recommendation, we have made a decision on the other two, and we've decided that we're not going to do them for at least a year. And the reason I say that is because of the expenses that we already have that we're obligated to, and the limited amount of funds we have. And I just want people to be aware, and I don't mean necessarily people at this table, I'm pretty sure everybody here is aware, but the consequences of us taking on OU means we can't do other stuff. And yes, we don't have to make that decision today, but by spending our money, we kind of did make that decision today. And with that, Madam Chair, that's it for my comment, and thank you for humoring me, I suppose.
No, we appreciate that. And I think the thing is, especially somewhere like Bowling Green, we're talking to them. We're still at the first stage. I don't know that we're going to be ready to, unless something miraculously happens, to jump in there on July 1st. But maybe we talk to them and say July 1st of 2023. There's things we can talk about. Akron, I think the same type of thing. Tri-C's a problem in and of itself, and that I recognize. We have the operator already there, and
We gotta help that operator.
yeah, that's the top priority with them. But I think,
But to that Tri-C discussion, Madam Chair,
Yeah.
In 2020, we were actively negotiating with Tri-C, and we were working toward, at the beginning of 2020, we were working toward the expectation of an install in the second half of 2020. And then COVID hit, and then our budgetary constraints hit, and we pushed that out till 2021, and now 2022, looking like 2023. If we start a discussion with BG and we end up in the same place, we never resolved what we were doing with Tri-C. So I'm concerned that we would open up a discussion and they may come to us and say, absolutely, you can have it, and we're not in a position to take it.
You're right.
And I don't know what the solution. Christy told me earlier, sometimes I talk in a circle. And I just did. I talked us right back around. We're going to talk to these people. Hopefully we get the job, but if we get the job, we can't have the job.
Yeah,
So I don't know what you do.
It is circular. These are, unique problems we're having now. Because all of a sudden we're getting universities to talk to us, which has been our hopes and dreams for a long time. And
They call and we can't answer.
yeah, it's just it's a rotten situation.
And Madam Chair, I think that I wish we all had a crystal ball. We can predict, we can forecast. I know we are working. Sally's going to work really hard, and Jen on Tri-C. But again, I look at someone who's running it, Mark, who's running it now. If we get these Youngstown things up and running, he's more likely, because he's in that area, apply for that. And then I think as a committee or as local, we need to look. Is the Tri-C where we're at right now? Maybe that's a site attachment then.
Could be. I don't, We'll keep working at it. And like I said, I think some of us need to be creative and start thinking of what we can do to generate some income too. And I don't know what that is, but think of some things.
But I'm glad to hear, Madam Chair, that Sally and the consult, everybody is trying to talk to this university. By concept, the pricing there, that situation needs to be addressed and fixed, and sooner rather than later. And Tom's right, we were working on going in there in 2020 and asked for an extension, and they got, because I was of the belief that they were, and I don't know how much money is on the table there sales-wise for the stuff we don't have, but if it's significant, we have and if it can help that operator, we have a situation there we're going to have to find a solution to.
Yep, absolutely.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Frank just reminded me of we had a meeting in 2020, and at that meeting we were discussing budgetary things, and we were discussing growth. And I got on my high horse and said, I cannot sit here in good conscience and vote to start any new business when we passed on this business because we were broke. And I don't know why that left my mind, but here we are sitting in 2022 and we just did it.
Yeah. Well,
At least I voted the
sadly
right
enough,
way.
we took the low-hanging fruit, and I know that's the way it is. Like you said and circled around, they're giving it to us. It's here for the taking, and I just don't know that we are in a position to turn stuff away when it's right there being given to us. But, okay, any more on universities? We're definitely going to have some work group talks, and your growth group and all that's going to have to really be involved in a lot of this, I think.
We need to try and find a way to help the operator to try to see it. We can all put our heads together and try to come up with some stuff and see what. Like you said, we need to find some more money.
We do.
And Madam Chair,
Yes.
this might be a little different, but Sally with OSU, and NORC, like the NORC campus in general, is there any way we can start taking equipment from there that's not being used or it's like overrated?
Madam Chair.
Yes, sir.
Yes, I definitely think, I know Sarah's been talking to me about that as well. If you could identify specific locations there, or machines that are not working out for you, we can definitely talk to the grainer there hopefully pull those out.
Well, I know Founders Hall, I guess around May or June, they're tearing that down. And that ain't gonna be back up for 2 years. And that's 5 machines, brand new machines right there.
Okay.
4 glass fronts, a snack and a coffee.
We'll take them.
Madam Chair?
Yes,
When we were all trying to be creative back in 2020, one of the suggestions the committee floated is go to operators and find out underutilized equipment that we could repurpose for some of these new opportunities. And one of the prohibitions on that was just the expense of relocating that equipment. So that obviously that would still need to be considered, but maybe we should revisit that proposal and see, are there operators who feel, and the difficult part is, right now it's the pandemic, people have machines that are slow and they want to dump them. And we all know that those machines will come back, and we can't afford to move them for 6 months and then bring them back. But if we have stuff that pre-pandemic was in a terrible location, maybe we should consider taking it elsewhere and trying to make some money with it.
yeah. I might have a snack in a glass run.
I might have a couple myself.
So, Madam Chair,
Yeah.
the other thing, and Sally has brought this up a couple times this week, that we have to be very conscientious about, and I think we discovered maybe with one of your machines in that, is that these machines that have not been used for the last 2 years, and they've been sitting there,
Yep.
they're not working.
Yeah, there's some.
So that's gonna be another problem where that's gonna eat into our maintenance and repair contract. We're gonna have to, we can't assume that a machine that's been sitting there and we move it, that it's gonna work. So that's the other problem.
We know there's gonna be some
Too
problem
bad you
with
can't
that, but
sell your
it's still
problems,
probably
because we got
cheaper
plenty of
than buying new. Yeah, it's still cheaper than buying new. So, okay, anything else with universities? 'Cause that's gonna kind of mold, we've kind of been talking budget, but we have budget on the agenda, and then we have insurance, so all this is kind of molding together, so, I guess we can talk about anything else with budget. So, if anyone has any reports or questions, or, like I said, we've kind of already hit on some of it. But, okay, so then I guess we will talk about the insurance, which is also kind of related to that.
Madam Chair,
Yes,
I just want to say, just because we don't have any remark on the budget means we don't care about the budget. That's not it. It's just the budget is what it is. We're all kind of aware of it, and it stinks, and there's not much we can do. That's why we didn't talk about it. But we didn't pass on the discussion because we don't want to have it. It's just there's really nothing else to say about it.
yeah,
So Madam Chair,
Yes.
again, I would employ the committee work with Amy and have conversations outside of this to so we can continually update everyone.
yeah, you're our budget chairperson, right?
Yeah.
I should know that. You want to set up some meeting with Amy and
Sure.
that group and really,
I really damaged my credibility with Amy, though, because I scheduled a meeting and I forgot my own meeting. And Amy and one other person showed up, and me and the other 2 did not. And I still feel it wasn't one of my smartest moves. It was a very busy
I
day.
think we've all done that at some point.
Madam Chair, I've moved on. It's okay.
So, okay. Insurance.
So, Madam Chair, I'll start it, and
Okay.
Amy can help fill in the blanks. So again, we've talked about this, we talked about it last year. We used the secondary contract to pay for everyone's insurance, which was like a $500 premium. I think it's going to be going up to $600 with Chubb. We're still having issues. We figured out Scott Allen's claim. However, they're going to get him a letter that says that it's denied, but they're still going to pay it out. So there's issues with insurance. The other piece of it is RSA's made it clear we cannot ever use match dollars or any type of federal income for this. That's why we use the state unassigned. So the state unassigned income, that $50,000 that we pay, could really turn into
Wow. Close to 250.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, $250,000 for expansion. But that would mean that everyone would have to go and procure their own insurance. Now, last year when we asked people to look into that, I think we had 2 committee members that actually looked into it. But at this point, and the insurance right now is up June 30th, but I really think that $250,000 to expand, and that would give us the room, that's something that we need to look at. And then when things do bounce back, that unassigned income can then go back to being distributed, the state income, when things bounce back, and people can get a bigger check. But the insurance, I really think that we need to look at that.
Madam Chair,
Yes, Tom.
here's another one of my circles. We've got people right now who are pretty much working for free. And to ask them to take on another financial obligation might be the straw that puts them under. And there are some who will say, if that's the way it goes, business is closed and all that. But this is a temporary problem we have. This is not part. These are viable if succeed when COVID, if COVID ever ends. And I know of several operators in my area who would have to consider if they get a $500 bill, and we're saying $500 because it's a convenient number, but every facility doesn't pay the same premium. And that's a very tricky situation. I understand we could use that money. I understand we need that money. But also, there's people who count on that right now because it's one less obligation they have. And maybe their Social Security's paying their bills. Maybe their business is just paying to replenish the stock that's going in the trash. And this could be a huge burden to those people. And I just want us to consider that as we discuss it.
Yeah, that's where I'd love to have that extra money. I would love a normal time, but of course normal times we won't be worried about it. But getting that $200,000 would be great. I don't know how we can ask folks that's not making any money to come up with $500 more. That's where I'm with Tom. I'm stuck with that. How to, normally I'm not the big cheerleader for, I think we could, most people in normal times could afford to pay it and this and that, and it was better for the program. But I'm with Tom. We have some people who literally could not pay it. They're not making any money now. They're making, we have, how many MORs are we getting any month net proceeds? 0. Or less than 0.
So, Madam Chair, I think it's hard too, because saying that's what we're paying right now, $500, it might go up to $600.
Right.
You guys have, each individual operator has insurance, whether it's vehicle, home, calling their agent, finding out what it would cost them. It might not be $500. And based off of the sales, which have gone down, it might not be that.
Correct.
Madam Chair.
Yes, Tom.
I know we had this discussion before, but it gets difficult for me as an individual trying to get insurance for state property. That's one of the complications. But the other is we say it might not be $500. It might not be. It could be $1,000. My commercial vehicle insurance, because of my vehicles, is $275 a month. Now, if I go throwing on the Kent State campus, because I'm the temp operator out there, if I go throwing on 3 rest areas, I throw on 2 storage units, I could be paying $1,000 a month in insurance. One of the things that helps us is negotiating those policies as a group. And we get a negotiated price so that they get our business. But if we start running out there as individuals, not only do we run up against the people who just say this is a ridiculous conversation, you can't insure that, but we also run up against the insurer who says, oh, sure, we can do that, and here's what it's going to cost. And we look at that and say, well, geez, that's more than I make. And right now, that's going to be the case for a lot of our operators. And also, the way it is right now, you guys pay the insurance and you're sure that it exists. If you get an operator out there who has to decide between providing insurance and feeding their family is going to happen and insurance isn't. And then we're going to be in violation of BGAs and other things too. And this just opens up a lot of cans of worms, Madam Chair.
Frank, did you want something?
No.
Okay, I thought you said something.
He did.
Yeah, I get it. I absolutely get where the program's coming from. And then there are the problems. Tom hit on it with temps and, you know, the bouncing around all over the place that we tend to do. You know, I think of Jim and John McNamara and stuff like that that's, you know, all over here and there, and they take this on, and we're grateful to both of them for what they've done in this. But situations where I can't imagine trying to, for an individual trying to keep up on that. And stuff. I don't know. And like I said, I really want that money for our program.
Well, Madam Chair,
Yes.
you just brought up another question for me. You just said you can't imagine how to keep up on that, and one of the things, there's no consequence in our rules for not having insurance on your facility. So if we now give this as a responsibility to the operator, and the operator just decides they don't want to pay for it, we really don't have any recourse.
Madam Chair, it is in the rules. It is in the rules that you guys maintain liability insurance.
I don't believe it's specific to what we insure.
And it says liability
It
insurance.
just says liability insurance, and it says if it's not covered by the program or something like that. Or that's the new rule, but I think the old rule even just kind of says it more general.
Madam Chair.
Yeah.
Our actual equipment, like vending machines and all of that, it's covered under state insurance. So it's completely different.
It's all liability. You don't have to cover equipment. It'd be all liability, or if you wanted to insure the inventory to some degree too. But the liability is the main thing that we're talking about.
So that gets into such a murky area, though, because Amy just said that the state insures the machine, so if a customer gets cut on the state's vending machine's glass, whose liability insurance is it? Is that mine as a facility operator, or them because it's their equipment that cut them?
That'd be for them to fight about. But
It's
you're right. They would fight over it. Yes,
And Madam
Frank?
Chair, I'll remind everybody, we've had this discussion before, and Tom Darren can tell you, Jeff Toll can tell you, it's done like this for a reason. Several years ago, many years ago, even before I was in the program though, that it was an issue. People did not have, or, you know, one person's insurance policy was lapsed, or they didn't have enough insurance, and it was all over the place, and that's why the agency started doing it this way. So that they knew everything was on par where it should be, how it should be. And they weren't having to run around, you know, every day trying to put out a fire or make sure something was.
Well, Madam Chair,
Yes.
I would also assume, without an in-depth investigation into every policy, that we all have pretty equal levels of coverage. When you start getting people who can purchase their own, you end up with you now have the question of what is adequate coverage? What is where are those lines?
Yeah. There's a good reason to have operators pay to get the money for the program, but there's a whole lot of really bad reasons to have that happen, and I just don't know that we can do it. It just seems so insurmountable.
And for the record, Madam Chair, I can financially pay for my insurance. This is not an appeal for the program to please pay for an item for me. This is a real logistical problem. If it comes out that I have to pay for my insurance, I'm lucky I could do that. But there's some who aren't.
I'm absolutely with you on that. I'll pay mine if we could split it up. I'll pay mine, and you can match the money you would pay for my own.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with that.
And do that. I mean, maybe we have some operators who's willing to do that.
But these meetings are. I'm sorry.
This is the general thing for everybody, and there's a lot of, you know, I'm like Tom, I'm blessed and stuff, but there's so many that.
These are public meetings and the public hears these things, and I just want the public to understand, well, we're not advocating for ourselves. Most of us sitting at this table are pretty fortunate. But unfortunately, right now, we've got a lot of people who aren't.
So, Madam Chair, again, I don't think it's like a one-time premium either. People would be paying it monthly, but I hear you. That it's $250,000 for program growth.
I know.
And You know, the other thing is people would be able to write that off, obviously, as an expense on their MOR.
So that does take back some of that
Right.
$250,000.
Right.
Because right there's less service charge
Right.
and the match from that service charge. So there is some, it's not a full-fledged 250. I mean, yes,
I have a question. What is the, I know the formula's probably changed, Christy, but I know it used to be, you know, like per dollar, it was, the match was 3.69 or something like that. Has that changed or gone up or changed? Because
Madam Chair?
Yep.
It is not. It's $3.69.
okay, because I was doing those 50,000 times 3.69, and I was coming up with 184,500, and I was just trying to figure out what the
yeah, we were
difference.
we were being cheap math.
So,
I was going 5 times. But
Madam Chair,
yes.
so again, I have to use a calculator. 50,000 times 3.69 is 184.5, but then you have to add that 50,000 onto it.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
So that's why it turns
Okay,
back into that. Yeah.
Okay, now I get it.
So,
That
Madam
was just
Chair,
confusing me, sorry.
it's exactly 234,500. But that 50,000 too is a round number for insurance. It can go anywhere between, I think, 48, 49 to 53.
Yeah, and like I said, it would be somewhat less than that, because if people did write it off, you know, if they wrote off so much per month, that service charge and the collection of service charge and then the match from that service charge, so it's not as much as it sounds.
Madam Chair,
Yes, Tom.
I really wish there was an avenue for those of us to pay it, and then those who can't don't have to. And I know that's,
Can we do that?
I wish there was a way to make it happen.
Are we allowed to, because I'm all for that. I'll pay it and you can match my money if you're able to do that. Is there
Hear,
an
hear.
avenue for that?
Madam Chair, honestly, we would have to take that back and think about it. The logistics on that, oh my gosh, I don't know.
Well, Madam Chair, to the Bureau, another thing, do we have the opportunity, if we do explore something like that, can you guys continue to find us the provider and negotiate the policies and just have us pay the premium? Because that's one of the biggest obstacles for us is an individual going out there and trying to initiate these discussions.
So, Madam Chair, I know one of the other BE states, I think a couple of them, they invoice the operator that then pays them, and so they do that.
Madam Chair,
But I don't know how that would work.
the Michigan program on my monthly report, I can put whether I take the state's insurance or I don't, and I take it and I pay theirs because it's $11 a month, so they can obviously negotiate the monthly rate, and then I, as the individual operator, have the option to not pay it or pay it.
Where's Michigan get their insurance? His is $11.
Auto owners insurance. I was just looking at the state.
I was
It's
gonna
like
say,
a
talk to
15-page
them.
document.
Call their program and find out where they're getting insurance.
But there's only 40 operators up there, so I wonder if it would be different.
Yeah. Madam Chair, so Jim, what is it? Auto what?
Auto owners insurance. I can send you this document that I was looking at.
Please do.
Yeah.
And we'll look into that. And I know James Hall from Michigan. I can call him and we can talk to our broker. I mean, the good news is our broker now is much more receptive and good. But again, these insurance companies are not used to our program. It's tends to be
unique.
problematic, but we'll figure it out.
Okay.
But we still need to come up with money for OU.
Yeah, I know. I know it.
Madam Chair?
Yes, Amy.
I think, like, going back to what Tom said, it wouldn't be an issue. Like, I think that we could still procure it. The whole billing thing is where it gets messy. So, like, they, I think, would prefer to send the invoices to the addresses on the policy instead of, like, rerouting the bills to us to pay. So I don't think that would be an issue if we were able to do, like, a opt-in, opt-out. The first year just may have some growing pains with logistics. But I feel like it's a constant growing pain with insurance and logistics, so I guess it wouldn't be much difference.
But the problem with that is they would bill the one time, the one fee. It wouldn't be like a prorated monthly fee like what Jim's paying or what I do with my car insurance where they're.
Correct, it would just be
Yeah, and that's, yeah.
one time, and it would have to be paid prior to the July 1st date.
Something.
Well, Madam Chair, I think we've started a discussion here. I think the Bureau should look into whether or not operators who have the financial wherewithal to make that payment can, and then leave that money in there so they can match it and keep the service there for those who can't afford it, and make sure that our people still have insurance on their facilities.
Yeah, can you guys look into that? Maybe we'll talk about it again. Cause it's good you brought it up for our January meeting, so we have a little bit of time.
Madam Chair, yes.
Okay.
We can look into that, we'll get back with you, and we can look at options.
Cause maybe we can get, even if we get, a third of the people who's able and willing to do that. I don't know if some will. There'll be some who won't, but there'll be some who will. To be able to match that for the program.
And if a third of us do it, it's a decent amount of money.
Yeah. So,
Buy a couple vending machines.
okay. Oh, let's do the laundry.
Madam Chair.
Yeah.
So we were contacted by ODNR to consider doing the laundry at state parks, which would be putting them like in the shower houses. I don't know how many of you camp, but I've not to date ever washed my clothes in the campground, but maybe some people do. So what they're looking at is it would be 2 washers and 2 dryers in each shower house. I explained to them that this year's probably not the year to go crazy at all, 70 state parks or whatever it is. They did talk about piloting a program. I forget what the park is now. It's Northeast Ohio. But they would need 8 washers and 8 dryers total. And so Amy has looked into this. We could lease those machines, right, Amy?
Correct.
For like $1,000 a month for all of them. So we're looking at like $12,000 for the year. That contract does include maintenance and repair. Now, they did comment that, they've been running it to date and really they break even basically. So it's not a real enticing opportunity, but it's out there if you guys are interested in trying it.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
another aspect of the one that they have talked about piloting, the bathhouses are only open 7 months out of the year. And a lot of times when these, when you get into leases, they are required for like 4 to 5 years. So, you're just not using their equipment for a year and then bailing.
Yeah, I don't like the whole
So if we would only use the equipment for 7 months out of the year, we would have to find some way to like winterize and protect the equipment for those other months. So that's another aspect of.
And it's West Branch Campground, I just looked up.
That sounds like a hopping place.
That no one ever heard of.
Right.
We don't want to be in a 4-year league. Or
Yeah,
12,000.
This whole thing sounds spooky.
And Madam Chair, Amy and I do have another meeting with them Monday. It was supposed to be like 2 weeks ago, but they just scheduled it for this coming Monday. But again, it's one of those things that if they were making money on it, I don't think they'd be.
Yeah, this one,
Offering it up.
There's where Tom's point.
yeah, this one definitely is that point, I think.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
just for the record, somebody else said that at the last meeting. I just brought it up again today. But I do have a suggestion about this, or a thought about this.
Mm-hmm.
Have we considered, this doesn't sound like a great moneymaker to us. However, it also sounds like that it's not going to be anything our operator physically has to do. There's a repair contract. we're not gonna be laundering people's undergarments. So really, we're just gonna be placing equipment and potentially collecting some money. So if we told them that this doesn't look very attractive to us, however, how about some beverage and snack machines in those areas? And then maybe we'd consider it.
If they,
Sure.
I don't know if there's enough people for those, yeah.
The only downfall is that we've tried beverage and snack at like Delaware State Park and Alum Creek State Park, and it was there for a few months, and we replaced the glass I think 2 or 3 times.
Oh.
And we've tried the ice vending machines at the state parks, and those were a flop. So vandalism is pretty much the thing that state parks makes it not so appealing.
Go right back to that insurance.
I'll be honest with you, if I thought it could make money since there's no work involved in it, it's just that, I would say just do it for the program and see if we could, generate some cash in the program for it, but I don't think it's gonna be worth it.
My concern is that inbuilt fee, that leasing fee.
Yeah.
Is if it was a one-time purchase of the equipment, it might be worth giving it a try. But when you look at maintenance and repair, moving, and all that, I don't think it's very attractive to us, unfortunately.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
So again, we've talked about this before, and Florida, they've started it, but Florida is unique in the sense that they have 12 months out of the year camping.
Right.
The other thing is, what did you, $12,000 a year for $12,000, and then you're looking into, what's the ROI on that?
Great if you're the people leasing them, I guess.
Yeah. You're the vending machine or the washing
provider.
machine leasing business.
Madam Chair, Sally, did they provide any sales numbers? They said they were breaking even. Did they give any numbers? Or?
Madam Chair, they did not. We can try to ask them
I don't
Monday.
think they're good. I don't think they're good. But...
I think it was based on what it took to keep the program running. It was just barely breaking even.
This reminds me a lot of when ODOT or the phone companies wanted us to take over the pay phones at the rest stops several years ago. This kind of has that same feeling. Because we all knew what big business pay phones
What did they
were.
want us to take over? What are
The
those?
pay phones.
I don't know what that is.
Yeah, I know.
It's like coin-operated laundry. I think most people who are traveling to campgrounds with any significant amount of laundry are doing it in an RV where they have facilities to handle that.
And I would be honest, if this coin-operated laundry was like on a university campus or something,
There you go.
it would be more, we would be having a discussion, to try to legislate, but not this.
You're a real camper, you wash it in the creek anyway. You don't even
If you're a real camper, you don't bother.
All right, so it sounds like it's things, but
We'll go camping with Tom.
I don't know. Does someone want to do a motion?
Does the Bureau want one from us?
Do we need a waiver, whatever, I don't know.
I don't even know if that's a waiver thing.
I don't even know what we need.
Yeah, that's different though. You know what, it'd be good to send them a waiver though, only because that kind of sets some precedence for laundry being considered vending.
Not a bad argument.
No, that is a good idea.
So maybe we send them a waiver recognizing our priority as that being vending and waiving.
I just wish somebody would come to us
So-
offering something we want.
Maybe we should do a motion to waive the vending opportunity for the laundry services at the state park.
I'll make the motion. That Annette just said.
Yes. Is there a second?
I second.
Okay. No? Any more discussion? Okay, we can call for the vote. Frank?
Yes.
Jim?
Yes.
Mark?
Yes.
Tom?
Yes.
And I'll say yes. So, okay. Temp agreements, we're cranking right along here.
Doesn't feel that way.
Yeah, temp extension. Have more of them.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
Yeah, there are just a handful that we have We put 2 of them out for bid and no one bid on them, so we were gonna extend them, and then there's a third that just needs
Okay,
possibly extended here. So the 2 that we put out for bid, that no one bid on were the Spring Valley Shooting Range, and then the, Starbucks and vending in Building 840 at Wright Pat. And John McNamara is temping both of those for us.
okay,
He said he would continue to do so. He doesn't feel like Spring Valley Shooting Range has been open long enough to really establish whether it's gonna make money or not.
Right.
And then just to preserve that Wright Pat facility.
okay.
He'll continue to tempt those if you guys are all okay with that.
I'm good. Anyone? Okay, we're, I don't think it's official.
Okay. And then the other one is facility 323, which is the post office in Cincinnati that Charlie Link used to run.
Oh,
Mark Ulbrich is running that, and he's been in there since, I want to say September, maybe?
That sounds right,
Yeah, so we were just looking at if we could extend that at least until June 30th this year.
Frank, what's your thoughts on it?
I'm not sure because of some conversations I've had with the consultant, so, but we can, I guess I'm comfortable with extending it, and we can look at it once we get into June and see. I'm not gonna go into.
Right, you don't need to go into all the details, but if we just want to extend it.
Yeah, we'll just.
Madam Chair, we can extend it, but it doesn't have to
Madam
be
Chair,
kept that whole time.
Right.
We can put it out earlier if we want to.
Okay,
Madam Chair,
yes, Tom.
my question is if it's ready to go out and we have some numbers, how come we're not putting it out? Like, what would be our reason for extending it versus putting it out for bid this week?
I'm not convinced the numbers are working.
But, and Madam Chair,
So it's
I
not
understand
making
that-
sales?
Yeah.
I understand the vice chair doesn't want to go too deep into it, but from the sound of that discussion, there's some question as to whether or not those numbers will be looking that great anyway. Did I hear that?
Madam Chair, there is some, I don't want to say major concern, but there are some concerns, Tom, that the numbers aren't where they necessarily. We're not sure. We're not sure if they're where they should be or not. So we were, I think, trying to get a little bit more time. I'm trying to see if these numbers can come back to, or at least get close to, not necessarily match up exactly, but get close, get this facility to where it was pre-pandemic. It has never been a huge facility, but there's just some.
Well, Madam Chair, I guess going with our discussion of earlier, right now there's a lot of people that need work, and if this is something that we believe is a viable facility, and I would never want to speak or take the power away from the local rep, but I think that if it's something we think there's a chance someone could bid on, I say let's get somebody a job. Let's get somebody making some money.
I think there's some question as to whether it is a viable.
Right,
facility.
and I'm not familiar with it, that's why
Yeah.
I made my statement like I did.
Right, and that's kind of where I am, Tom, and we're trying to determine that and get a really good handle before, because I don't want to throw away a facility. The question is it going to stay a facility? Does it become a site attachment? Or does it, the other operator in that building, does it get combined into, not combined without being posted and everything, but does it become a site attachment and that operator, I don't know. Trying to get more numbers, Tom, before we I don't want to make a hasty decision and then be wrong.
Well, Madam Chair, it sounds like there's a lot of facts that aren't being presented to us today, so I guess until that changes, we should leave it in the hands of the local committee.
Yeah, I tend to agree, so we can extend that one. Like we said, it doesn't, just because we agree to extend it, it can go out at any time. That just gives them permission to keep it there that long, so.
When someone calls me up and says, well, why did you vote for me not to have a job? I want to be able to say, because I don't know what I'm voting on. So that's where we're at.
Yeah, I understand. Any others, Sally?
No, Madam Chair.
Okay. Let's see, where are we here? I'm trying to say some. Okay, we could do the consultants, phones, changes to their contact method. That's a pretty easy one. I would think we can knock out. Christie?
Yep, Madam Chair. So as a cost savings for the state, again, everyone's looking at cost savings. For the 150 building, they are reducing the first floor. They're looking at, other regional offices. One of the things that they're looking at for VR, just to give you guys some background, is looking at the needs assessment and making sure that where counselors live, is there a place for like smaller offices to get the most bang for our buck. So in the whole general plan, one of the other cost savings measures is giving up desk phones. The desk phones that have been since the pandemic have been forwarded to everyone's state cell phone. Now, for our program, everyone had a state cell phone with the exception of Kim and Kelsey, and they both were given state cell phones when we went home. So the first is going to be central office, which would affect the three of our phones, Cynthia's and Kim's. And that's probably going, I found out this week, Annette, after we talked, probably quicker than what we thought. Right now, again, they're pointing to the state cell phones of those individuals. And what we're going to do is we're going to get out communications to all operators that, and please tell them to delete the state cell phone from your contacts for
No,
not state cell phone.
the desk phone.
Desk phone. Thank you. Desk phone.
Delete
We
them
would
all.
get this in writing. the desk phones from their contacts. I think Annette, you would ask, well, is there going to be a recording that says and I don't know the answer to that right now. This is IT. It's I forget the vendor, the third party vendor. They're trying to work on those answers. Right now, we've been given strict instruction too that our voicemail message has to give to another option of getting a hold of people. So, and I got to change mine. The voicemail will say you've reached Christy Houck. You can reach me also at, christine.houck@ood.ohio.gov or leave a message on this voicemail. So, I know we've got operators that have been using the desk phones to get a hold of their consultants for years. We also, I think, still have an operator or two that doesn't have long distance. So we are keeping the 1-800 number. We're going to keep the 1-800 number, but that's going to point to Kim White's phone. And then if she's off, she'll forward it to Kelsey. We've gotten very good at forwarding phones.
Right.
We're making sure that all of the websites, all of our letters and forms and everything that we're taking off the desk phones.
Madam Chair. I'm sorry, Christy. I thought you were.
Christie said it.
So I think that I think they're looking at July 1 for all the regional, but for central office, it'll probably be in the next couple weeks.
Also, it's alarms.
Yeah. So.
Time to wake up.
It's the phone over
Tom,
there.
it's your phone over here.
Oh, is it really?
I was like,
Disrupting
it
its
comes
phone.
from over here.
I don't.
Just hit the volume key. I think
What's
that's
your? I was gonna say, Tom has a.
I don't use that. It's an old phone. I was just using for recording.
Okay, Tom, you had a question for.
I was just wondering, does this affect our budget in any way whatsoever?
Madam Chair, it sure does, because we pay for our phones, but you're going to ask me a dollar amount, and I have no idea, because it is attached to a lot of other DAS.
Okay, I was just curious.
DAS costs, and actually we're going to get to another DAS cost later on, Amy, is that we're going to try to reduce our DAS costs.
Oh, do I have that on? Okay.
I think that might be anything else that we thought about
Okay,
yesterday.
well, we have a few anything else,
Yeah.
so.
Yeah.
Surprise.
Yeah.
I mean, she could go over that right now.
No, we'll hit it, because I got a couple things, one may be the same, well, okay. So, maybe send out, they used to, and I don't think we've had one in a while, send out a contact list, just BE staff and give all the phone numbers and send it in all the formats and everything. Actually, I wouldn't mind having that in Braille, to be honest.
Not from.
And,
And Madam Chair, we're also getting used to, and we can also figure this out as well, that particularly iPhone users, how we can make a digital business card, so when a consultant is with their operator, they can virtually send that business card to the operator, so that would also be helpful.
okay,
And we can give that instruction as well.
okay. Any more questions on the phone thing? Or the office thing, actually, because they're not gonna be there anymore tonight, so. Alright, let's see what else. Alright, now we got a couple more. Oh, it's only 11. Alright, here's one. This is we're gonna start getting into the sticky stuff. We had good things. Forgiveness of initial inventory. And I'll take this on because I put this on the agenda. We have an operator who back last year, when we forgave all of the initial inventories, we had everybody do a list of, what their losses were. We've settled some of that up. From what I understand, we had 2 operators who did not turn in something at the time by the deadline, or who did not claim no losses, like many of us did. We do have one operator who since then has lost their facility and is no longer employed in a permanent position. They have a temp, a very, very small temp. But their facility is closed. This individual no longer has a permanent job and will be on the hook for the initial inventory amount. There are some extenuating circumstances that they've shared with me that I'll present why they did not turn in a loss list, a claim of their losses by the deadline. During that time, they had a open VR case and was receiving training at a local training facility in computer type stuff. They worked on this with they said, hey, look, I turned in one list, which was a very general, not itemized inventory list. That one was turned down because the committee and the bureau wanted an itemized list of the losses. So they said, look, I don't know how to do this. I don't have a way to do this in an accessible way. So their trainer said, well, let's make this part of our training class. And they were working on the Excel sheet as part of the training, putting it in, learning how to use Excel and getting it all together. And I believe it was Excel, getting it all together, and did turn it in, but it was after the deadline. When it was turned in, they never got any notice or anything that it wasn't acceptable, that it's too late. They went all along thinking everything was fine until the facility closed, completely shut down, and they're being told now that they owe about $10,000. Does not have another job to go to, no means of paying this, and basically if we stick this person with the 10 grand that would have been forgiven if there hadn't been a kind of a lack of understanding there, everything would have been fine. But now this person's career basically will be over if they have to pay this. And So I'm not this individual's rep, but they came to me and asked me to present it, and so I am. So I'm coming to the committee asking that the committee take this person's calls up and ask the Bureau to go ahead and forgive this person's losses that they did submit. It was just past the deadline.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
the total amount that they owe from their facility that closed is $6,269.
Okay.
Not 10,000.
Okay, good. I was wrong on that amount then. I
Yeah.
apologize. That's still a significant amount of money for
Sure.
someone who's not really working.
Sure.
And hasn't been for 2 years, basically.
And we'll definitely listen to everything you guys have to say. I just want to clarify a couple things. There was a motion made in April that the deadline for turning those in would be April 30th, and that was a motion made by this committee. The Bureau started sending out in April of 2020, information saying, please keep track of your losses, write everything down. Operators didn't have to type anything up. We had handwritten, backs of envelopes of turning in their inventory. I mean, it came in all different forms. And there was so much reaching out to this operator. I know the Bureau had reached out even to you and Tom and said, can you reach out to this person? And I believe you did. But we reached out to this person so many times and never got anything until June 25th is when it was finally sent in. So almost a full 2 months after the due date. So just some things to consider.
Absolutely, and I'll say that it was a deadline because we needed to have something. We needed to know the numbers, but it wasn't. I mean, it was just a set thing. It wasn't in rule or anything like that. It was just something we came up with to get a general deadline. And this person truly thought that because it was part of VR, that the Bureau was aware of it, that they were working on it, and everything was fine. And like I said, ended up turning it in and never was told when they turned it in that, why are you turning this in? What's the point here? You're not going to get forgiven for this.
Madam Chair,
Yes, Tom.
can I ask the Bureau if they have a total for how many people did turn it in on time? How many people took advantage of that one-time opportunity?
Madam Chair, just 1 second, and I'll.
Madam Chair, my apologies to the Bureau. I know that that's kind of an out of nowhere question, but it would be helpful for where I'm going next.
Madam Chair, can I also add that when we got the numbers from everyone, we submitted that to that OBM and got the money from OBM to make those transactions happen. And that's why we needed those, and the backup documentation. And they questioned when one of them, we didn't get the one side of one envelope, they questioned. They're like, this number doesn't add up with your backup documentation. So we worked with OBM on getting those funds to be able to forgive that debt.
And I understand all that, but if the push comes to shove, are we willing to let somebody's career die through the fact that their facility, under normal circumstances, the facility would have reopened, they would have used their money, built their inventory back up, left it someday with some inventory there, and it not been a problem. They would have had a chance. This person has no chance. Are we willing to let their career die in business enterprises over an arbitrary deadline that the committee set?
May I have the floor, Madam Chair?
Yes, Tom.
I guess I'm going to have to be as blunt as you were in making that appeal and say, are we willing to say that because of this person who was not in a coma, who was not out of the country, who was not completely out of touch and unaware of this, did not do what every other operator in the program did in a timely fashion, we will now forego the purchase of 5 to 10 vending machines to make up for this debt. And if you take that money and you match it and you look at what we could buy with it, that's what we're doing. And the reason we're doing it is because somebody didn't do what they were supposed to do when they were supposed to do it. And Madam Chair, I'm sorry, but to use the excuse that they were getting help with technology, to use the excuse that they couldn't submit this and all that, I think that's all a load of garbage. Because every person in this program who gets a facility and takes an initial inventory with that facility signs on for an obligation to provide a semi-annual inventory for that facility. And you have to do that in January, and you have to do it again in July. And we don't always make people submit these, but you're supposed to be doing them. So what was asked for last year was no different than any other inventory that has ever been done. So for an operator to say that they were completely unequipped to be able to do that is just an excuse for not meeting the deadline. And I'm sorry, but deadlines are deadlines. This committee asked every other operator to drop what you're doing, get this done by this date. So when we say it's not in a rule, or when we say that it wasn't a hard deadline, it was absolutely intended as a hard deadline by this committee so that the Bureau could move forward with helping those who needed help. And I don't know what this individual's circumstances are, and I don't even know who this individual was, even though it's not relevant to this discussion. If the individual were me, you were given a deadline, you didn't submit your things on time, and now that has a real financial impact to our program. Had you submitted the stuff when it was requested of you, someone else would have paid that bill. But now it's a different circumstance. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Madam Chair,
Yes,
like the chair had referenced, there were extenuating circumstances here, and some maybe lack of communication internally between VR and between our management people. I'm not saying our management people did anything wrong, but maybe they weren't made aware. Maybe, and I think it was just miscommunication, misunderstanding all the way around. I don't know who talked to who or who didn't talk to who, so I can't comment on that. The other thing I will say is we do have money there, the 200 and I think it's 14,000 from OBM that I don't think is a part of our matchable. It's not matchable. It's not a part of, it's there. I think the intent is to use it to buy initial inventory and to do other things. So I don't think it would cause a hardship on our program to actually forgive this individual's inventory at this point, but to forgive the inventory. But I do agree with what the chair had said. I don't want to see someone's career destroyed over this. It wasn't the individual's fault there's a pandemic. It wasn't the individual's fault that they lost inventory. I do agree that, all the way around, maybe it could have been handled differently or handled better. But I don't think we should sit here as a representative committee. I think we need to represent everyone and represent this individual as well. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Madam Chair,
go ahead.
as a representative committee, it is our job to represent every operator equally. And now what we're being asked to do is take our personal feelings into account and treat someone differently than every other operator in this program was. And that is not what this committee is supposed to do.
Madam Chair.
Hold on a second, I have to respond to a couple things. One, it's not a personal feeling, it's what people feel is best for the operators that we represent. There's no personal feelings involved. There may be opinions, which we don't have. But second of all, when you do a semi-annual inventory that you're not required to turn in, you may not put that in an accessible format that sighted people would expect to see it in. I don't know. I would have never thought to put something in handwriting on the back of an envelope or something like that. But I may have turned something in Braille, or I may have turned it in audio or something like that. But this person was told that wasn't an option. So they didn't realize that it could be given in other formats. They thought it had to be in a print format that could be read. When I've done semi-annual inventories, I've done them on a Braille writer. So that's just how it is. And to be honest, if the Bureau asked me to see my semi-annual inventory and I gave them the Braille copy, I would expect them to take it. But a lot of people don't feel that way. And I did have one other point, but it just went right out of my head. So
May I real quick, Madam Chair, to what you just said? if the discussion were that you turned in your semi-annual inventory in Braille and the Bureau said that's not acceptable, I would have a different opinion. That's not what we're discussing. What we're discussing is a person who said, oh, I just can't do this, so I won't. And now says that's a financial penalty to me and I don't have the money to make this up. If it was that big of a deal to you, and that was a significant financial burden, I would think that you would have been one of the first to turn it in. I would think that you would have called the consultant and say, hey, I need some help. I would have think that you would have called Christy and said, hey, Christy, this isn't right. I can't do this. Help me. I wouldn't think that you would submit it after the fact and then just let it ride and not follow up and say, hey, did you accept that? Am I good? And then all of a sudden your facility's closed and you get a bill and you say, well, what's this about? I turned my stuff in late in the wrong format, and why aren't you giving me credit? It's not as simple as a person who was, if we were talking about a person who was incapacitated and just wasn't able to do this, I would say that's okay. If we were talking about a person who wasn't connected to the world and was unaware of the deadline and all the discussion that went on with this for 2 years, I would say that's okay. But I don't know who we are talking about, but I'm pretty sure we're not talking about that individual who was nowhere around our program.
No. And the other point I'd like to make too is that they did turn it in and it was accepted. There was no response back that I'm aware of from the consultant, from the program, from anybody. It was accepted.
Madam Chair?
Yeah.
I feel like I have to be the argumentative person here, but if a person is selling their home and I go up to the for sale sign and write an offer on the sign and I never hear from them, do I just assume I own that home and they took my offer? Just because a person never said this wasn't accepted didn't mean it was accepted.
No, I disagree with that when it comes to the program. I mean, the consultant obviously saw the email, had to wonder why are they turning it in? I mean.
Madam Chair.
Yeah.
The other concern I have with this is to keep it fair, does that mean that everyone that turned in their losses on or before April 30th, do they get to claim the product that they lost between April 30th and June 25th? Because I'm sure there was more loss during that time frame as well. So I just, I think we're opening this up to be precedent setting, and we could have expenses coming out of the woodwork that we're not going to be able to get money from OBM or wherever it came from. Something to consider.
Another question for the Bureau, Madam Chair.
Yeah.
Was there anyone else who did not submit in a timely fashion and has now attempted to submit?
Madam Chair.
Yes.
We had 53 operators who did submit by the deadline, and then we had 4 that did not submit anything. But she's the only person who submitted something after the deadline, I believe.
Madam Chair, thank you.
So, we have a couple of opinions. Is there anyone?
Madam Chair, I'm going to make a comment. I do believe that with this particular situation that we should seriously consider forgiving it, just because some of the things that the communication side, the misunderstanding side, whatever you want to call it, and Sally made the point about other individuals. Well, but those other individuals, were they working through were they working through a VR case at that time? Were they doing training? And I don't believe they were. Excuse me, okay, I'm sorry. So, with all of that said, I'm going to make the motion that this inventory for this particular individual be forgiven.
Is there a second? Okay, there's no second, so I guess that dies. No, that's disappointing. You have someone whose career is probably effectively over in this program, and I think that's wrong, but that's my opinion, and,
No, Madam Chair,
yeah.
I don't normally do this, and I'm sorry that I have to. But it's been very clear where the chair stands in this, and
Yeah.
the chair is being very, I guess, trying to sway the committee with the chair's statements and opinions. And I understand that the chair feels a particular way, but the committee shouldn't made to be ashamed of their decision when this committee represents all operators, not the operator who comes to them with the worst story.
Well, Tom, everybody, when we have our comments and our discussions, tries to sway the committee. That's what the whole point of discussion and comments is.
But it's different when the person who directs the discussion is interjecting their opinion so strongly into that discussion.
I was asked to bring it before the committee to represent this operator.
And rightly so, Madam Chair. It's the comments after the fact that I take umbrage with. It's the comment after the vote that I take umbrage with.
All
Well,
right.
Madam Chair, I would suggest that in the future, if there's going to be that type of a situation, maybe the vice chair should chair the meeting while the chair makes their statements. Because it's uncomfortable as a member of the committee to be put in that position.
So noted. Okay. So, move on. Oh, okay, we got the rule stuff. Alright, rules revision update. So we have things that's happened with the rules since our last meeting, November. We've talked about it, we've tried to send emails, let the committee know what's going on. RSA basically came back with some concerns over some of the language in the rules, most specifically Rule 4 regarding subcontracting. The committee talked about that at the last meeting and liked the notion of it being changed to inform instead of approval, yes, I'm sorry, for subcontracting. So the committee have kind of weighed in already on Rule 4. RSA, I believe, was happy with that. Rule 14, there's been some language put forth to add language in the rule saying that if a hearing is not permitted, that an operator still has the right to an arbitration. We had some talk about that. That's kind of new, but it's not really it's a change to the rule, the language, but it just clarifies what's already out there. The big change that we got to talk about today is in Rule 6, and it's regarding the suspension of a bureau operator agreement. What some of us old timers always refer to as the shock removal rule, where an operator who is doing, there's a list of items there that are, enumerated that are pretty bad things, and they are, if somebody needs to be taken out of their facility on a temporary basis, pretty quickly for. RSA took umbrage to that. They said they didn't like the statement in there that was, that's not discipline. And they believe that an operator who is suspended from a BOA still deserves compensation for their work on that BOA. So there was a lot of discussion going back and forth about where we land with that. Frank and I told when we had these talks, like we talked about a little bit earlier, Frank and I made it very clear that those were major changes that were being proposed, that they could not be done without the active participation of the committee. So that's why we're here today. Plus there's been some movement on resubmitting things to JCAR. There's been, just a general update. So that's the things in a blur. Christy, did you want to add anything?
So, Madam Chair, yeah.
Okay, had a lot of stuff. Okay, yeah, I know, I did a very
So again, this whole process, and again, we are coming up, 24 months? It seems like 36 or 48. 24 months of reviewing since 2019. So it has been more than, it's been a while. So RSA received our package back in May. May they received it. And remember, this summer, it went through the CSI process. I think we first heard back from RSA back in July. They had initial comments. We sent those back in September. I think you guys subsequently sent your comments back. And it's been going back and forth, back and forth. And again, it got to the point where in December, we're like, we need to get on the phone with them, and got Frank and Annette on the phone with them as well. And in the meantime, we don't have rules right now. We are against state law. We are beyond the 5-year review and the extensions. So we had the J-card hearing, then we had the public hearing, and so the J-card hearing happened on December 6th. We had our public hearing on the 21st. Then we had a subsequent call with RSA on these 3 rules, 4, 6, and 14. They were refiled with the added thing from RSA's comments, and they are going to, those 3 rules now have to go back in front of JCAR on January 25th. The other rules are done and are going to go into effect, I think, February 14th. So the 4, 6, and 14, if we have issues, if you guys have an issue with those rules, they are going, there's the public hearing again with JCAR. But at this point, even Rule 6, we might have to not pull back. We can't pull back. We're not allowed to pull back anymore. Rule 6, we might have to, with that added line for RSA, we might have to open that back up or resubmit a new rule change in February to get that in line with the rest of the rules. And we've talked from the very beginning that at any time the committee and the Bureau wants to open up a rule, we can do that. That we have that available. But again, I heard you, Frank, on what you said, but we can't stop this JCAR train. Once it starts, it goes. So it's the rules have been filed. We could not wait to, and again, I don't understand, I'm not the lawyer on the time frame and the legislature, and we don't have control over that process. It's a separate body. They set the rules, and it is it's not looked upon very well when you have rules that lapse at all whatsoever. So that's where we're at. The changes that RSA has asked, that again, and I understand that Annette and Frank aren't, that's not active participation, but particularly in 14 and in 4, they benefited the operators. I don't think that they're controversial on their own. Rule 6 has been where the Bureau and the committee in general, again, I understand that Annette and Frank don't speak for the whole committee. We've been on the same page with that from the very get-go, and it's the rule has been in there for the past 2 rule packages. Their new person at RSA doesn't understand that this discipline, it's not considered discipline if you temporarily remove a person and is really, really worried about the harm that it could do to an individual operator. And what we were trying to say is we're trying to protect a job. We're trying to protect the job for the program. And if a situation comes where we have to make a action to remove someone before we have the opportunity to actively participate to cancel the BOA, allow us to have that ability to do that. Because I also don't, it puts us at peril too, that if we don't do anything and we lose that we could have you guys grieving that we lost a facility because we didn't act on a situation. And again, these situations, it's never happened since I've been here, to remove someone just for 45 days. That's a lot of work. And, it has to be a very, very serious thing. And discipline, it's not discipline because our discipline track, it has to be a pattern, a PIP. This would be, this would be something very, very bad. So I don't think, again, I don't think that any of this is where, and one of the things we went back and forth. And so last week we said to them, RSA, okay, let's put back your language, RSA's suggested language back from November 16th, that the paragraph now says the director of BSVI or designee may immediately suspend a BOA for up to 45 days, which shall not be considered discipline, and then add this line. However, the operator maintains the right to request a hearing under 3304-121-14 whenever the operator receives notice of a suspension. And then the second part, which has always been in there, any proposed extension of a suspension beyond 45 days requires active participation of the OVRC. In no case shall suspension exceed 6 months. The BOA may be suspended for any of the following reasons. And there's specific reasons. You can't just, you know, I think that they thought that we would just go after an operator for any reason, but there are specific reasons in there. So that's where we're at right now. That's where we're at.
Go ahead.
Okay, a couple things. One, the other rules will go into effect assuming that RSA signs off on everything. They do not go into effect if RSA does not sign off. So if they don't approve the rules package and give us a letter specifically saying that they're approved, then February 14th doesn't mean anything.
So, Madam Chair, February 14th, they would be legal in the state of Ohio. They would not be illegal in RSA's eyes. However, within the last 2 seconds, I just got a letter from RSA.
Oh, okay.
Greetings. We have prepared an approval letter. We need
Okay.
to circle back to ask you if this is the final copy. Typically, there's a title on the document,
Yeah.
and this is also in blue and underlined. The appendix in black and no underline. Please let us know if this is the final format. So,
Well, maybe we got it then. Okay.
just
Talk
got
about
it. Like
timing.
literally 2 seconds ago.
RSA's ears were burning. Oh, yes. They knew we were talking about them. So that part sounds like it could be irrelevant. So then I guess we need to talk about, so I guess they're happy now with what we put in
Yeah.
Rule 6, it sounds like.
Yeah, I think that
Yeah, they're not I'm surprised they're not, because they were really hitting on the whole net proceeds thing, and they must be
Madam Chair,
pleased with that. Yes,
I have two that I'd like to remark on from the presentation by the Bureau.
okay.
One is the committee has been told throughout the entire rules-making process that we have to revisit the rules. We don't have to change the rules. So my non-legal interpretation of that would, that the Bureau made the statement that right now we're working without rules. It's not entirely accurate. We have rules. We just haven't reviewed them when we were supposed to, which puts us in violation of something. But we still have rules. And we will continue to have rules. If we choose not to change a rule, that doesn't make that rule illegal. And secondly, to say that I'm going to take you out of this facility, I'm going to hold on to your product and your money, you will derive no proceeds from this location for a period of 45 days. That's discipline, and no matter how you define it, that is discipline. And you're now telling someone because of their actions, you are giving them a consequence, and the consequence is they no longer make money from that facility, and you're seizing their property. They don't get to walk away with all their money. They don't get to walk away with all the inventory. You take control of that. And I understand for the purposes of RSA and JCAR, this discussion it looks like it has worked itself out. But for us setting a precedent in the future, I consider that discipline.
Madam Chair, can I address two things? One, the state of Ohio does not consider RSI being active rules right now. They've expired. On the books, administrative code, there's no active rules. But I understand we're all under the belief that our rules are the 2015 rules, and I would absolutely apply them right now like we did 6 months ago, 12 months ago. And you're making the argument of RSA, and I still think that we can continue to talk about it. If we suspend someone, we would transition them out. They would take their product, they'd take their money, we would transition them out unless they're in prison or jail. That would be a problem. Again, I hear you, Tom, but I'm thinking of situations in the past, and we had someone selling drugs in the post office, and We've had situations where even you have said, like, you guys have to do something so we don't lose this facility. Discipline for us comes into play, and that's the other thing is, and we can open this and the discipline rule up, because I hear what you're saying, and maybe we can approve upon this in the next rule package. But discipline for us, it comes into twofold. One, it requires a PIP and a pattern. Two, it affects the scoring of, to get another facility. And being suspended does not do any of those. It does not affect someone bidding on a facility. Now, what you're saying, like, again, we can talk in the future about linking those two, but that's the thing where I understand the perception is if you remove someone, it's discipline, but in the rules, it's not attached to our discipline rule.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I think we're having a difference in communication. In the past, this rule has been used to go take possession of a facility. There was not a transition. There was we're walking you out of here today, give us those keys, a new operator will open this facility tomorrow. It was not a transition. It was a takeover. And that, in my understanding, is what this rule was still intended to be. So if that's not the case, then I misunderstood. And back to the discussion of whether or not this should even happen, I absolutely believe there are circumstances where the Bureau should take possession of a facility. I absolutely believe that there are reasons, like the selling drugs, the bringing weapons on premises, where there's been others where a grantor has just said, you're not allowed out here anymore. And in those cases, the Bureau absolutely has to take, and I don't have any problem with that. I'm just saying that if we're going to do that, somehow we have to put it in our rules and make sure that it's done properly, and that an operator has an appropriate recourse. To me, it sounds like discipline, so it should fall under discipline. But my argument is not, or has never been, that we shouldn't do it. My argument is just, if we're going to do it, let's call it what it is. That's it, Madam Chair.
Yeah, and it's kind of a point now, but I never liked the phraseology, even though I understood it. And we tried to make it clear to the RSA that we were kind of all on the same page with that we understood why that statement was in there, but and what it meant. But it is wonky. It always has been. I've said it every time we've talked about Rule 6 over the last thing. It's a weird statement to put in there saying it's not discipline, but we're throwing you out. It's like telling your kid you're grounded, but if you're not in trouble, it just seems kind of weird, even though we all know what it meant. I see where RSA thinks that, and the more I thought about it, I said, why do we even put the statement in there if RSA was going to be so upset over it? Why are we pointing it out that it's not discipline? Because there's nothing in our selection that really scores that. You don't lose points for being under a suspended BOA. There's just nothing there that affects things. So my thought was, let's just get rid of the sentence if RSA has a problem with it. It really doesn't change anything, whether it's in there or not. And it makes it less wonky, but it appears that RSA has come to understand it. So I think it's, like I said, it's a moot point.
And Madam Chair, you were copied on that email from Corinne. They're so weird. Like, Frank, you were not, but I can send it to you. Greg was not. So,
Yeah.
so
I give it to the
odd.
people who need it.
So odd. But I think that we can
Corinne
talk.
did it though. It wasn't on Christine. Christine Grassman's probably lying. Corinne sent it, so she probably just sent it to me and Christy. It sounds like.
Me, Christy, and
Madam
Lance.
Chair, the only one I had within Rule 6 is the one where we talk about if they're reinstated or go back to the facility, they get that say they can apply for a stipend to receive the net proceeds had they been there, or something along those lines.
So, Madam Chair, that was in there at one time, and that was taken out. She didn't like it, and I think that we were trying to placate them, and that didn't make sense either. It really did not. I think that their thing was, is there recourse for a person that is removed? Yes, absolutely. There's recourse. They can grieve. They can go to small claims court. There is recourse. I think that the other piece of it is where I got in trouble was I gave the suggestion of a person selling drugs at a post office. So then they focus solely on an investigation.
Yeah.
Well, there wouldn't necessarily always be an investigation.
Right,
And it
they
would be
did.
done by us.
Our whole conversation went that turn because we were trying to use examples of the suspect, because she's like, well, if they're doing that bad, why wouldn't you just terminate? So we got into the whole, well, we're taking time to see if, it's justified that the person, taking a step back, taking time to see if it's justified that they lose their job. The suspension in some ways is to protect the operator, to give time to say, okay, you get a grantor who's really mad and won't let them back on the property, so you suspend the BOA, but then maybe you have meetings with the grantor and they say they can come back.
Madam Chair,
So, yes, Tom.
I just have a question about the draft of rules that the committee has last seen as a committee. The language that Frank just referenced a minute ago, I don't recall ever seeing in a rule. So the draft that RSA is giving their tacit approval to, and the draft that JCAR is moving forward with, that is the last draft that we all have. That there's no changes to it, correct?
So, Madam Chair, and I'll have to, 4, 6, and 14 were the only changes that you hadn't seen, but that was sent out this week with the JCAR notice. 4, 6, and 14. The rest of them, there's no changes from the last time everyone received that.
And those were the changes, the language that Frank referenced for that stipend payment, that was kind of, and that's what we were going to talk about today, because that's one of the things that Frank and I said was a major change that couldn't be made without the committee's input in on, but it sounds like RSA doesn't care and is fine with the rules without that, so we probably don't need to even go there, but 4 was the one about the informing instead of approval for subcontract. The committee did approve that at the last meeting when we talked about some of the concerns that RSA had. That was one of the things the committee said, hey, we don't have a problem. We think the Bureau should know about a subcontracting. There was a pretty good discussion on that, but we agree with RSA that approval isn't necessarily needed, but the committee at the time believed that the Bureau should be informed and should know about it, and that's where we kind of landed.
Thanks, Madam Chair. I just wanted to ensure that where we were. That we
Okay, I wanted to make sure that everyone was happy, that there wasn't something really put in that's different, other than telling people they have a appeal right in Rule 6 now, and the appeal right to arbitration now in Rule 14.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Christie, the JCAR hearing's on Tuesday. I know it's a public hearing. Are we allowed, if we wish, and I don't know that I am or not, but are we allowed to, if anyone would like to provide written comment?
Yes, absolutely. And Frank, I think you did on the first one too. So, and that was included in the testimony. If you get on JCAR's website, that is part of the testimony, and you can submit that. And I believe you directly submitted it.
Okay. So are there any other questions about the rules? And I want to say something. I don't know, and maybe it's just my ignorance in the whole thing. The statement's been made a couple times today that our rules have expired. That by state law we have no rules, that they have expired. I don't know, and the other members of the committee speak up in case I just missed it somehow. That I know that JCAR was unhappy. I know the Bureau was getting scolded, saying that there was this deadline, that we had the extension. I know all that. I didn't realize the rules actually expired.
Madam Chair?
Yes, Tom.
I remember this committee specifically asking that question, and we have been told on numerous occasions they do not expire. The period for review will get us in trouble if we don't do something, but I'm pretty sure if any of us went through the Ohio Revised Code, we could find a lot of things that haven't been reviewed when they said they were going to be reviewed. It doesn't mean they're not still enforced.
So, Madam Chair, I'm not a lawyer. I don't understand the JCAR process. I'm only telling you what I've been told.
Right.
I don't know.
I understand.
I don't, Ethan.
And, I mean,
Oh, yeah, Ethan?
to kind of point to that, I mean, I believe what Christie is saying is pretty correct. and the JCAR process. I mean, even in our systems that we use to do our legal research and things like that, I'm looking at one of the sections right now, actually 04, and it says this document is current through updates effective October 31, 2021. So that's telling me that it is still effective until 2021, October. So as of right now, I mean, it is out of, trying to think of the right word there. It's still effective because we would still use that if there were any issues to come up. The rules are still, we would go back to the rules that were put in place in 2015. So, which are the current rules that are in place. But with these updates, you do have to do the 5-year review though, unfortunately every 5 years.
Right.
So, and what Tom is saying is correct too. We could just leave them as, they could have just been left as is. Nothing could have been done to sent to JCAR or RSA. However, in this case, things were sent and we have passed that deadline. So these rules do need to get approved.
Right. I think that I think was a communication gap in there. Because all of us, and I'll be honest, and I still, as of even last week when you said when I brought up to you that we should have got RSA approval before we took them to JCAR and everything, you kept saying we had to, and I think some of us were scratching our heads saying, what is the big deal? So what if they go past the 5 years? Someone gets a bad letter from JCAR and gets their finger shook at them, but no one's going to lose their job. No one's going to lose funding. Nothing really bad is going to happen. And I guess nobody really understood that the rules actually expire. So maybe something to keep in mind in the future to help communicate that a little bit more. So we understand what those consequences, because I know we've had that talk, but we said, well, what happens? I mean, what's the big deal? So what if they're past their time? What's wrong with that?
Hey, Madam Chair.
Yeah.
I'd like to ask a question to, Christie or Ethan, whichever one of them. For several years, you guys have said, Christie, that if we need to go back and fix a rule or we're having major problems with it, we could always open it back up. We've been told by previous attorneys, they've said that to us, and then when push came to shove, and we said, hey, we need to fix this rule without waiting for it, they're like, no, you can't do it.
So, Madam Chair, again, I cannot tell you what happened in 1990, early 2000s about any of it.
2012, 2014.
And I think that was a different chief legal counsel. Again, I think that Greg has made the commitment. I've made the commitment.
Well, and I believe you. My point was, though, you guys have made the commitment, but if legal comes and goes, no, you can't.
Yeah, and they come back, and I think it was previous chief legal counsels just not wanting to deal with it. But I'll tell you, they do change rules with VR all the flipping time, because I get noticed by them. So,
Madam Chair,
yes.
do we know what the expiration date is on this rules package once it does go into effect?
So, Madam Chair,
Should be 5 years.
5 years.
Okay.
2027.
The reason I ask is because the other one went in 2015. It's going to be changed in 22, so that's 7 years. So I was just wondering, when does the deadline change? So I guess it's 5 years from the date they actually become.
Yeah.
Sure. So, Madam Chair, the reason this one went 7 was because of the pandemic and because we got extensions. Then it was my understanding that we exhausted our extensions. And so, again, I think part of it is we will better communicate. I now understand. I did not know that they expired. I was the same with you guys. I did not know that. So I think it's a learning process that we know and better communication in the future on that. And let's not wait until to the last minute, and hopefully no pandemic will happen. And I do think that these rules are, hopefully the next time it's not as laborious on going through word for word on, maybe we can just focus on a couple rules and we won't have to open them all back up.
Well, that may be something we do, is if we see something that needs changing, we change that part, do it real quick, get it through. That rule's good for 5 years. And instead of making it a huge project. I don't know. Or we could see, which typically what happens, once these rules are codified and in place, we say, oh, geez, what were we thinking when we did that? Because something bad comes out of it. There's some kind of collateral damage from the rule that nobody foresaw, which is, what typically happens when we decide we need to make a rule change. It happens that no matter what the best of intentions are and all of us putting our heads together, every rules package, something will come out of these new rules that we weren't expecting. The Bureau will do something, an operator will do something that people said, gee, we opened the door for that, and we'll want to fix it. So, all right. So, if we're done with the rules themselves, we got to talk about the distribution of the rules then. So, Christy, you.
Sure, Madam Chair. So typically, what we did the last time, again, I can't.
That wasn't nice, Frank. You drew it right at me.
I can't.
I'll get it later, Frank.
Thanks.
I don't know what happened prior to the last rule package, but what we would do is we go to state printing and we print out like 100 and some of these rule books. We would go to each operator. We would have them sign a wet copy that they received the rules. Even if they, their preferred format was Braille, which makes no sense. So I think, and again, and that.
Why does that not make sense to have a preferred format of Braille?
No, what I meant to say is we would give you a hard copy book instead of Braille.
Oh, okay.
No, it made no sense to give you a regular.
All right, I gotcha.
So, and then, again, making sure that everyone had the full package right there. So I need your guys' input. We can reach out to everyone and find out what their preferred format for these rules are, how they want, and if it's multiple. It will be available online, and we could give you a link, and I kind of want to give everyone the link of the actual, where they are in the administrative code, but we could also have a link to a large print version, Word version, not Word, PDF, original PDF. We can do Braille. So, or if you want a paper copy. So how do you guys propose that, do we go out and do a survey of all operators and then just gather that list and do? But I also want receipt that people receive their copy of the rules. And that could be in the form of, because we have BE Web now, an email back, a form, just some acknowledgement that they have received their rules.
That's pretty standard. We've done that. I think if you're happy with an email, I don't think there's a problem with that. In the past, when we've had new rules, people are used to having to have signed for them or.
Madam Chairman.
Yeah.
Christie, and I don't know if you know the answer to this, how much is it going to cost to have all these prints, the hard copies printed? To me it sounds expensive, but I don't know.
So, Madam Chair, I'll have to look at what we did, but that's what I'm proposing, that we don't do that.
Oh.
I'm proposing
Well, yeah,
that we
because
don't.
I'll use myself as an
print.
example. I was going to say, just send me an email and let me reply electronically or something that says, hey, I have it, it's here, I got it. But although I heard you say PDF, you said something about Word, I'm going, yeah, I wish it was in Word format instead of PDF.
It'll be first generation PDF. So,
Whatever.
but
I don't know what that means.
I don't know.
that means it should be it's accessible. We could send it in Word. We could send it in Word.
Oh, that's cool too, if you can, but.
No, I'm proposing that we get out a survey to determine how many we have to print. We're still going to have to print some.
Oh, agreed.
But it's not going to be massive amounts. The other thing is, and I told Annette, for Braille, we've got a contact, I think Grafton Prison has they'll Braille and they will bind it. So we've got an availability to do that, which I think will be beneficial.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
what do we do for an operator who doesn't sign the rules package?
That's an excellent question.
Smack them around. Take them to the bathroom.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
I think what we'd probably do is on a form say operator refused to sign.
Yep. And
Probably,
document that.
yeah.
Yep.
We've got a circumstance coming up in my area for an operator who's not going to be able to sign this document, and I'm just curious if there's some of the things that change in this new rules package that operator will very quickly be in violation of, and how are we going to handle that since there's no way to get that operator that rules package signed?
Is there, I mean, I know he's.
I don't want to go too much
Yeah,
into
I know,
specifics,
I know,
but there's an
I know.
operator who
Who can't
cannot
do it. You're
communicate
right.
telephonically and cannot communicate
Okay,
in any fashion or form, apparently.
okay.
But
We will go.
if we're going to give people rules and we expect them to sign and abide by those rules, that's what I assume when an operator puts their signature that they received a copy. They're now agreeing to be bound by those. What do we do for the circumstance of the operator that refuses or is unable? So that I think we need to look into that sooner rather than later, because we might end up with a situation, there's a person who didn't sign them and is in violation of them.
So Madam Chair, again, are we sure that he can't sign it?
Well, Madam Chair,
Like I said, let's not get it, we'll talk, I think
Yeah,
Tom's point is made and we'll bring that up. You know, we can talk about that specifically, but just to know that that's a possibility, that Tom's correct, we shouldn't get into the nitty gritty of, that situation. But
I guess if you guys can work on getting us some answers to those questions, it would be helpful going forward, please.
Madam Chair, I was going to say the same for the committee. Tom, if you could come up with some answers for that would be very helpful.
I leave it in the hands of the professionals.
No.
I mean, there may be somebody with power of attorney or something, I don't know, and I don't know if that even qualifies.
That does exist. I know
Yeah.
that.
Okay, so
Oh, there we go.
that may be worthy of something, I don't know, but, but,
Still don't know.
Yeah, we've got a couple cans of worms here, and I just, a
Let's
few
not-
more questions just occurred to me that unfortunately I can't even discuss here, but this is something we're gonna have to keep a close eye on, guys.
okay. So yeah, do your survey and send them out and.
And Madam Chair, if I can help the Bureau a little bit, can you guys use DocuSign? Because that would be the most convenient for me. You send it to me,
No, DocuSign.
For those of you that don't know, that DocuSign, if you get help one time, you can put your signature on file and all you have to do is tap apply signature. It's very accessible.
Oh. Well,
I can look into it.
howdy.
You just tap a button that says sign document and it applies it in all the places, dates it and everything.
Oh. That's cool to know. This is why we keep Tom around. Even when Tom gets mad at me, we keep him.
I got tired of asking Emily to sign documents for me, so I finally figured
Yeah,
it
that's
out.
it. Usually I'm taking my phone to Jim and saying, here, sign this.
I try to do it and I end up, it's a disaster, but we got it covered now. It's on file.
Good to know.
One time.
But, all right.
Madam Chair, I'll look into that. There might be some issue with security of that, but I'll look.
Okay.
Because that would be wonderful if we could do that.
Just throwing it out there as an option, that's all. I'll do whatever you guys need. The last time I had to sign a piece of paper, so anything's an improvement over that.
Well, I like the notion of just an email.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
I'm
this
fine
is
with
good.
anything.
Got the rules. You know, here they are. Now, I almost hate to bring this up.
Here she goes again.
I know. But we had an area manager, and I don't think we did it last time, but we had not an area manager, a program manager who got it in his head that people need to sign new BOAs whenever the rules got changed. You guys aren't gonna do nothing crazy like that, are you?
No.
Okay, good.
Imagine that one.
Yeah. Yeah, it was a big old, huge to do.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
No, but we are going to be looking at our forms, making sure they comply. I can tell you, like, the BTOAs need to be changed to TDOAs. That's going to be an adjustment. There's going to be stuff like that, but we will actively participate and include you guys.
Okay.
And all
Madam
of that.
Chair,
Yeah.
could we get a little bit of definition on active participation? The last time we had some forms change, we really didn't find out about it until after it happened. So before we do this, can we see the old copy and the new copy of the forms
Yep.
before we start using them? Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Anything else on distribution of rules? All right, so now we're to the anything else. portion of the agenda. I know you guys had some, and Christy, you sent me the thing yesterday, and I was gonna actually bring that up. The National Association of Blind Merchants annual subscription is up this time of year. So we typically will subscribe to that. I believe, is it still $3,500?
Yes.
They don't have a COVID discount, but they know we're broke.
Yeah, I wish they did. But, you know, we've definitely gotten our money's worth out of them, so.
Madam Chair, the portion, we split that, if we do use match money, so
Yes,
the portion out of service charge would be $745.
Madam Chair,
yes,
the services we derive from that are well worth that expenditure, and we'd be crazy not to have it.
absolutely, so. And you guys, since it's just continuing, I don't even know that we need a motion. You guys, if you're willing to do it, then you want a motion?
Madam Chair,
Okay, we'll do a motion.
I hereby move that we continue to pay the subscription for
NABM.
NABM for the
NFBEI, yeah, the NABM NFBEI.
for the Terry Smith organization.
Yeah, there you go.
I'll second.
Okay, is there more discussion on that? All right, for the vote, Tom,
Yes.
Frank,
Yes.
Jim,
Yes.
Mark.
Yes.
Okay, I say yes. All right, and then I had one other. You guys do yours, so I thought I had one other, but I think we didn't.
Madam Chair.
Yes,
So this is more just of a heads up. There's going to be a lot of communication coming out in the future about it. But just heads up, our agency is getting pushed by OBM to quit cutting like physical checks, because for every single check that we cut, it's $12, and that does come out of our budget. So they are pushing everybody to sign up like for an Oaks ID, a supplier ID, so everything can be direct deposit to cut down on those costs. We found out that a lot of the operators and vendors are already signed up for an Oaks supplier ID. It just may be inactive. So there's a form that will be sent out with communications to fill out if that is the case. But we're seeing it as a good thing. Funds will be, more instantaneous rather than like we submit it and then they process a check in like 7 days, and then after that 7 days it gets mailed out. So things will be quicker, and then we'll also save money. Because like I said, it's $12 for every check that we cut. But it's going to be sometime this year. I know that they're working on like our internal systems to get that set up. And it won't even start to be like tested until March. So it'll be probably towards like the middle to the end of the year, but there will be like ample communications, like I said, about that.
Madam Chair,
yes.
Yep.
Tom?
I have to be me, and I have to say that if the state's gonna stop cutting checks, can the state make us stop having to mail checks? It's annoying. It's incredibly annoying to me that I still have to mail in a check for my service charge when I file a paper MOR, quote unquote, which is done via email. So if the Bureau thinks it's inconvenient to deal with checks, I just want to be on record and say so do I.
Yeah. Madam Chair, the hope with the OBG inventory situation, once we get that fixed, I know we were saying it's for inventory buy down, but it should fix the fact that we will be able to do like closing and openings on the gateway and to cut down on the sending of checks. That's the hope. So hopefully that'll happen this year too.
Madam Chair, I agree with you, Tom. That we are dependent upon IT.
I know.
At OBG, at ours, and it's a process, and it takes twice as long as what we think it should. So, but we totally agree. And just to follow up again, everyone's getting their annual benefit check in paper check, so this won't apply to that. This also helps because every year we have 1 or 2 people that lose the check or we need to reissue the check. So I think that'll be very helpful. So,
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I just want to make a personal statement. Every day I get a little blinder, and it's more and more inconvenient to mail those stupid checks and to have her fill them out for me. And that it's not her job to do that; it's my business. And the faster we get away from it, the better.
I agree. Don't we still have in our rules if someone does an NSF that they have to? Do we leave that in the new rule? I don't remember that they have to turn in a certified check for like a year or a money order or something.
I remember
Did that make
I
it?
don't think so.
Okay, I was gonna say, I know that was in the rule, but maybe we were smart enough to take that.
Hey, we had a guy in Cleveland who had to do that for his vendors, the bureau. It was a lot of people.
We had, I gotta tell, I think he would love it, so I'll tell Brian White's story. So people may have heard this, but he changed accounts and because a previous administrative assistant that we had in the program would take like 6 months to cash checks. He waited and waited, changed accounts, and then she finally got around to cashing paper checks, and it bounced.
yeah.
So by rule, he had to pay by certified check every month for the rest of the year. And he said, forget that. He wrote one check for like $5,000 and said, you guys just take out my service charge. I'm going to keep a running balance, a tab now with the bureau. And it ended up being 10 times more work and annoyance for that administrative assistant to deal with, I'm sure. But
Madam Chair, little anecdotal thing, if I may.
yes.
I was going through some old computer hardware, and I found a recording of a 2015 OVRC meeting that Brian was actually in attendant at, and I'm going to be posting it on the YouTube channel sometime in the next week or
Oh,
so.
good. Okay. I miss Brian. I do.
He got
Brian
mad
was
before
so
the meeting even started. It was a good one.
good. Yeah.
Madam Chair,
miss
can
them.
you
Yes.
send out, and I don't know how many people have already filed their MOR, but I know, I think the inventory needs to be checked as actual on this month. So I was going to ask if we could send out a reminder today for everybody to, or I know it was sent out. I did see it. I think it was in December, either late December. It was sent out sometime in
Yeah,
December,
it
or
was.
January.
My consultants just did it like a week or so ago, a week or two ago.
Oh, okay. Well, maybe it was out.
I gotta say, most people probably, well, I don't know. Most
Don't say
people
that, I'm in
have.
that-
I know, most people probably haven't done it.
Shut up.
So, Madam Chair,
Yes.
I asked about the
Man,
DocuSign.
whatever.
Yes.
So unfortunately, we can't do DocuSign right now, but they're working with OIT, which is the state's IT, on something like that. DocuSign is cost prohibitive. They would charge us for each and every signature done electronically.
Oh, yeah,
Okay.
we don't want that, yeah. Okay.
Well, thank you for looking into it.
Yeah, that was quick. The only other thing I had, I did remember the other thing I had. Secondary highway vendors, getting them paid back for the overpayment. I know we've gone back and forth on that, probably gonna have to use program money for, which I'm not happy about, but it looks like that's gonna happen, we have to make those folks whole. Are we gonna get that done soon, or?
So, Madam Chair, again, at this point, we propose to use that OBM inventory money,
Yeah.
How much is that?
About
$18,000.
$18,000. And it's a shame that our program's gonna have to use some of our funds to do that, but at least it won't be matchable service charge money and all that, so.
Well, it's also a shame that those guys had to pay the stuff they
oh,
shouldn't
yeah,
have to pay, so.
They need to be made whole, that's for sure. So, okay,
We'll make that happen.
okay. Anyone have anything else?
Madam Chair, I have 2 things.
Okay,
One, and again, I know the least about this, but I believe Lisa Litzinger mentioned the credit card readers and Cantaloupe. You guys want to address that? What's
well, I
going
thought okay, you guys have something else to add about Tom fixed that, but go ahead if there's more to add.
Madam Chair, there's not a whole lot more to that. In the email sent from Cantaloupe, they show how an operator can pull the reports and a certain column will tell you yes or no if it's compatible. So that there's a video that talks you through how to do that. There is also a way visually to look at the bezel. So if need be, we can have consultants help out with that. But it sounds like the easiest way is just to pull that report out of your reporting tool.
But we talked about having a deadline, having people reach out to their consultant to do that, so we have an idea of how much we have to replace, right?
Yeah, but
Madam Chair,
yes, Tom.
the email had some confusing parts. It said that there would be fines for people and all that, but that's a fine for the card processor, not us. So that's why USA Tech is suspending processing of that equipment. So the email was a little bit confusing, but it basically, all of our new equipment should definitely be compliant, because just about everything we have everything we have now is purchased within the last couple of years because of our switch over to the G10s from G9s. So in the event that we don't have any, in the event that we do have some older swipes that are in the field that aren't compliant, the only effect on an operator is people won't be able to pay with Apple Pay, but you're not going to get a financial penalty. It'll still take a credit card swipe. You just won't be able to accept Apple and Android Pay until that reader head is upgraded.
So, assuming that the equipment is the new, all the G10s, it will still be able to accept Apple Pay and all that.
Well, Madam Chair,
Yeah.
during our changeover, we when you switch from a G9 to a G10, you don't have to switch the reader head. So we could have some old reader heads that are non-compliant out there in the field. But again, they'll still accept a credit card payment. They'll still work for those. They just won't work with the tap and pay. And I don't even know how many of those we have. I was unable to find out a generation or a production date for when they started putting the compliant software in the readers.
Oh, okay. So that's what, because most of us just changed the
actual
the
telemetry.
telemeters,
Right.
not the heads. So some will and some won't. Okay. Now I get it.
And then, Madam Chair, the only other thing, again, to remind everyone, let me talk about, and I think everyone knows, we are down 3 consultants and an area manager. That's the tally right now. 3 in Columbus. So, and we've shifted some work across the state for the other consultants. Again, I just need people to be aware of that. Situations where we've got operators still trying to call Sally directly, and she's putting out fires throughout the state. So, just want everyone to be conscientious of that. The other thing, which, Annette, sorry I haven't given you the heads up on this one, but we just found out, our chief legal counsel is going on to another agency, so we are down in chief legal counsel, so.
And that would be,
Matt Limke.
I just wanted it on the record for those who don't know.
Okay.
And then, one more thing, sorry.
No,
So there was a
Keep
screw
going.
up on this room thing today. It has been situated. I've taken care of it. The next 2 meetings, February and March, and we'll put this on the agendas, are back into 1948.
Okay.
And then there is going to be, and we'll make sure that it's in there. I think it's just in June that it's in this room, and the rest of the times it's back into that 1948 across the hall.
Okay.
Confirmed.
Try and remember that and actually put the room number in the.
Yeah.
I had to contact the chair because it wasn't in this week's agenda,
Yeah.
and maybe that's why, because we didn't have the sunroom.
But I don't know. I probably did it, but.
Well, next time she's not gonna take my call, so you gotta put it in the agenda, because now I made it mad.
Yeah, we almost sat out in Jim's dining room here and had the meeting there. That'd been fun.
We might try that one day, just for change of pace.
Yeah, it's not like
public
there's
meeting.
any people here, so it's sad, but yeah, there actually are. There's some of the support staff and everything are here. The specialist thing and all that, or consultant thing. I'm still an old timer. Do you think at some point we should all sit down and really talk about what consultants do and try and see if there's places to, because we are down a lot of them and we recognize it, and it's not a problem. We're down a lot of facilities, but, is it worth looking at what we want and need the consultants to do in order to, you know, work with a more limited staff. Is that something that's
Yes.
worthy of sitting down and all of us kind of talking about?
Madam Chair,
Yeah.
I certainly think that if the Bureau's willing, we should be willing as well. We gotta do with we gotta work with what we have. We're all having to do that now.
Yeah, I really think we should. We'll maybe put together a work group and kind of sit down and talk to you guys and see, kind of get a good idea of what the consultants do, because most of us out here, we think to ourselves, gee, what are they doing all day for, 40 hours a week? But I know they're lesser, and I know there's stuff that we're not aware of and everything. So,
It would be good to make us aware.
yeah, it really would be. And we can maybe all work together to try and find how we're gonna, in the new BE, where we have a few less facilities, and how we're gonna get by with less staff, because, obviously we can't afford more staff at the moment, so, and work with the people we have. So, we'll do that. Okay, before we adjourn, if anyone has anything else, Ethan is here. We might want a few minutes to kind of get an update on some ongoing legislation. So, pardon me?
Litigation.
Litigation. Oh, I
We're gonna
promoted
litigate the
you,
legislation.
Ethan. Yeah, we all got promoted. Yeah, sorry, litigation. So, if the committee would like, we could entertain a motion to go into executive session.
I'll make the motion that we go into executive session to discuss pending litigation.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay.
So Madam Chair, I'm confused. Are we adjourned?
No,
We cannot adjourn
but we will
executive session.
have to come back and then adjourn.
It won't be
It'll
long.
be
You won't need to be, I mean,
It should be 5-ish minutes.
So,
Yeah.
but again, executive session, is that?
you have to,
I understand that.
Yeah.
I totally understand that, but what about the people on the phone?
we're going to turn it off.
Yes.
Yeah, we're gonna turn it off.
And also we need a roll
Roll vote for
For
that,
that.
yes. So,
Tom, yes.
yes,
Yes.
Mark, yes.
and Frank, yes, and I think, okay, so we voted to go into executive session. We're back on the record. Did anybody have anything else to, bring up today? All right, then, is there a motion to adjourn?
I so move.
All right, second, let's do that, 1 second. All in favor?